Story 1. For 2 decades, my dad called me his biggest regret and chose my brother over me every time. Then, he showed up begging after I made it big. Hey, Reddit, buckle up because this one's a long time coming. For 20 years straight, my father made it crystal clear I was the mistake he never wanted, while my brother was the golden child who could literally do no wrong. Then karma came knocking, and suddenly I'm the favorite son. Here's how it all went down. I'm 28 male, the oldest of two brothers. My younger brother Tyler, 25 male, has been the apple of our dad's eye since the literal day he was born. Me? I was the accident that derailed Dad's entire future and ruined everything he'd been working toward. He told me this directly, multiple times. Starting when I was about 8 years old, my parents got pregnant with me when they were both 19. Dad was supposed to go to college on a full baseball scholarship to a Division II school in Ohio, had serious dreams of making it to the minor leagues, maybe even the majors if things went his way. Then, Mom got pregnant with me, and suddenly Dad's entire carefully planned future evaporated like morning fog on a summer day. He dropped out of community college where he'd been taking general education courses before the scholarship was set to start that fall. Got a job at a manufacturing plant making automotive parts. Worked his way up to shift supervisor over the years, but it was never what he wanted. And he made absolutely sure I knew that every single day of my childhood. The plant work was brutal. 12-hour shifts in a loud factory where the temperature hit 90 degrees in summer. Dad would come home exhausted, smelling like metal shavings and machine oil, his hands permanently stained with grease that never quite washed out. He'd sit in his recliner with this look on his face. Not quite anger, not quite sadness, just this hollow resignation that his life had taken a wrong turn he couldn't reverse. My earliest memory of Dad is him yelling at Mom about how their lives would be different if they'd been more careful. I was maybe 5 years old, playing with toy cars on the living room floor while they fought in the kitchen. Didn't understand what they were arguing about at the time, but I knew somehow it involved me. The way Mom would glance at me with guilt in her eyes. The way Dad's voice would drop when he noticed I was listening. The resentment wasn't subtle either. Dad would look at me sometimes with this expression like he was doing mental math in his head, calculating all the things he could have been doing if I didn't exist. Baseball games he could have played in front of scouts. Cities he could have lived in. Money he could have saved instead of spending on diapers and daycare and all the expensive things babies need. When I was 7, Tyler was born. That's when everything suddenly changed. See, by then Dad had adjusted to his life. He'd accepted that he wasn't going to be a professional athlete. He'd settled into his job at the plant and worked his way up to a position with better pay. He and Mom had been married for 7 years and had actually planned Tyler's arrival. They'd saved money, prepared the house, got excited about having another baby. This time around, Dad was actually ready to be a father. The difference in how he treated us was night and day. Tyler's baby photos are professional studio shots in matching outfits with Mom and Dad beaming at the camera like they'd won the lottery. Mine are blurry Polaroids where you can barely see my face because Mom was still learning how to use the camera and nobody cared enough to retake them. Tyler's baby book is meticulously filled out with first words, first steps, first everything documented like he was some kind of scientific experiment. Mine has my name and birth date filled in, then empty pages for the rest. When Tyler was old enough to walk, Dad started teaching him baseball in the backyard. Would spend hours out there every evening and weekend showing him how to grip a bat properly, how to throw a fastball with the right wrist snap, proper batting stance at the plate. I'd watch from my bedroom window, wondering why Dad never wanted to teach me those things when I'd asked years earlier. One time when I was about 10, I asked if I could join them for batting practice. Dad looked at me like I'd suggested something completely ridiculous and said Tyler was still learning the basics. Maybe when he got better and needed more challenging pitching, I could throw to him for practice. Translation: you're not worth teaching, but you can be useful as equipment when we need you. That became the pattern for pretty much everything. Tyler got attention, instruction, encouragement, one-on-one time. I got assigned chores and told to stay out of the way. School events really highlighted the stark difference in treatment. When Tyler had kindergarten graduation, which, let's be honest, isn't really a graduation, it's just kids walking across a gym, Dad took the afternoon off work, showed up with a video camera, and recorded the entire ceremony. He was right up front, waving and giving Tyler thumbs up, staying after to talk with the teachers about Tyler's incredible progress in learning his ABCs. When I graduated middle school with honors, actual academic achievement, not just finishing kindergarten, Dad said he couldn't get off work and didn't even ask how it went when he got home that night. Just walked in, grabbed dinner, and asked Tyler about his baseball practice. I could have walked across that stage naked, and Dad wouldn't have known because he wasn't there. Tyler's first Little League game? Dad was there an hour early to help set up the field and drag the bases. Stayed after to talk with coaches about Tyler's natural talent and advanced baseball IQ, even though Tyler had struck out twice. Bought ice cream on the way home to celebrate, even though Tyler's team lost 7-2. The whole evening was about Tyler being part of a team and learning sportsmanship and all that parent stuff. My first high school football game where I actually played in the fourth quarter as a backup linebacker, Dad didn't come. Said he was tired from work, and football wasn't really his sport anyway. Never mind that I'd been excited all week about finally getting on the field. Never mind that I'd specifically asked him to be there. He was tired and football wasn't baseball, so it didn't matter. The excuses were always the same too. He was tired from work. He had things to do around the house. Football wasn't as interesting as baseball. Band concerts were too long. Academic competitions were boring. But baseball games for Tyler? Suddenly Dad had endless energy and interest. Suddenly he could take time off work. Suddenly sitting on metal bleachers for 3 hours was no problem at all. Mom tried to balance things out, bless her heart. She was working full-time as a dental assistant and didn't have enough hours in the day to make up for Dad's obvious favoritism. She'd come to some of my stuff when she could, always looking exhausted and guilty that Dad wasn't there. She'd apologize quietly, make excuses for him, promise he'd make the next one. He never did. "Your father loves you," she'd say every single time. "He just shows it differently." That's not showing love differently. That's not showing love at all. The verbal stuff got progressively worse as I got older and could actually understand what he was saying. Around 12 years old, Dad started making these comments about how I needed to justify my existence by being useful to the family. How Tyler was the son he'd actually wanted and planned for, while I was just the consequence of bad timing and worse decisions. One night at dinner when I was 13, I mentioned getting a B+ on a really difficult algebra test. Had studied for hours. The class average was a C-, and I was genuinely proud of pulling a B+. Dad's response was to turn to 8-year-old Tyler and say, "See how your brother settles for good enough? You'll do better than that. You'll aim for perfection." Tyler was 8, hadn't even taken an algebra test, probably didn't even know what algebra was. But Dad still used my actual accomplishment as a teaching moment for why Tyler should exceed me in every possible way. When I made the varsity football team sophomore year as a backup linebacker, which was actually impressive because sophomores rarely made varsity, Dad's reaction was to ask if they were short on players that year. Like the only way I could have made the team was if nobody else wanted to play. When Tyler made the traveling baseball team in 6th grade, which was basically just kids whose parents could afford the fees, Dad threw him a whole party and invited all the neighbors. The message was clear and absolutely consistent. Tyler's achievements mattered and deserved celebration. Mine were footnotes at best, embarrassments at worst. I dealt with it the way a lot of ignored kids do. I stopped trying to get Dad's attention and focused on becoming completely self-sufficient. Got my first real job at 15 washing dishes at a diner called Rosie's about 2 miles from our house. Saved every single penny I earned. Started planning my exit strategy from that house the literal second I turned 18. The job at Rosie's was tough work. Showed up at 5 p.m., worked until closing around midnight, washing hundreds of dishes in scalding hot water that turned my hands red and wrinkled. My fingers would be pruned by the time I got home. But I didn't complain because that money was my ticket out. Dad seemed actually relieved when I started working. One less expense he had to cover. Told me since I was earning money now, I should start contributing to household expenses. Started charging me $200 a month for rent as soon as I turned 16 and got my driver's license. Let me repeat that. My father charged his 16-year-old son rent to live in his own childhood home. Tyler never paid rent. Not when he turned 16. Not when he turned 18. Not when he was still living at home at 23 years old. But I had to contribute starting at 16 because apparently my existence was such a burden that I needed to start paying them back for the privilege of raising me. The financial double standard was absolutely constant. When my car broke down junior year, this beat-up Honda Civic I'd bought for $900 from a coworker's cousin, Dad said I'd have to figure it out myself since I had a job and should learn about car repairs. I ended up spending $300 I'd saved for college application fees to get the alternator replaced. When Tyler wanted a car for his 16th birthday, Dad co-signed a loan for a nearly new Ford Focus and helped make the monthly payments for the first year until Tyler got established. Tyler got established by totaling that Ford Focus 6 months later, driving too fast in the rain. Dad's reaction? Accidents happen. Let's get you something else. They bought him another car. College was the exact same story, just with bigger numbers that made the inequality even more obvious. I got into a decent state school with some scholarship money covering about half tuition, but I still needed substantial help with room and board and books and all the other expenses that add up when you're trying to survive as a college student. Asked Dad if he could help with anything, even just a couple $1,000s to get me started. His response? I was 18 now and needed to learn financial responsibility. Said taking out loans would teach me the value of money and build character. Said he'd done me a favor by not helping because now I'd appreciate my education more. The mental gymnastics were impressive, so I took out student loans. Lots of them. Federal loans, private loans, whatever I could qualify for. Took out loans and worked 2 jobs simultaneously to cover living expenses that the loans didn't touch. Worked overnight shifts at a warehouse from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. loading trucks and moving pallets. Then, I'd go to morning classes running on pure adrenaline and exhaustion. Weekend shifts at a coffee shop from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. meant I basically never had a day off. Functioned on 4 hours of sleep most days, sometimes less. My roommate freshman year thought I was a ghost, because I was never there when he was awake. I'd come back to the dorm at 8 a.m., sleep until noon, go to afternoon classes, study until my shift started, then do it all over again. The bags under my eyes were so dark, people asked if I was sick. Ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for probably 70% of my meals. Learned to make ramen interesting by adding whatever cheap vegetables were on sale. Frozen peas, canned corn, whatever. Peanut butter sandwiches on the cheapest white bread imaginable became my primary source of protein. My diet was approximately 60% carbs, 30% cheap protein, and 10% whatever vitamins I could get from the occasional banana. Wore the same 6 outfits over and over because I couldn't afford new clothes. Same 2 pairs of jeans alternating all week. Same 4 t-shirts in rotation. 1 decent shirt for presentations. My shoes literally had holes in the soles that I covered with duct tape because buying new ones meant choosing between shoes and textbooks. Watched other students go out on weekends, take spring break trips, join clubs and organizations. I couldn't afford any of it. Couldn't afford the dues, couldn't afford the time away from work, couldn't afford to be a normal college student doing normal college things. Tyler got into the same state school 3 years later with significantly worse grades and 0 scholarship money. His GPA was barely above the minimum admission requirement. His SAT scores were mediocre at best. He'd coasted through high school on Dad's constant excuses and Mom's enabling, never really applying himself to anything except baseball. Dad paid for everything without hesitation or conditions. Full tuition, every penny. Room and board in the newer dorms with air conditioning and private bathrooms. The premium meal plan with unlimited swipes. All his textbooks purchased new from the campus bookstore instead of used or rented. Even gave him $500 a month in spending money for going out with friends, buying whatever he wanted, living the actual college experience. Tyler joined a fraternity freshman year, $4,000 in dues that Dad paid without blinking. Went on spring break trips to Cancun and Miami that cost thousands more. Had a car on campus sophomore year, something most students couldn't afford. While I'd been eating ramen and working overnight, Tyler was living the college life that exists in movies and TV shows. When I asked why Tyler got a free ride while I had to take out $30,000 in loans that I'd be paying off for the next decade, Dad had his justification ready. Said Tyler had more potential, and it was worth investing in his future since he'd likely go on to do great things. Said I was already established with my engineering program and work history, so I didn't need help anymore. Said the loans would make me appreciate my degree more when I finally paid them off. Established. Potential. Appreciation. All these words that basically meant, Tyler is worth spending money on and you're not. I was a 21-year-old college student eating peanut butter sandwiches twice a day while working overnight shifts and going to classes exhausted. Tyler was 21 later and attending fraternity parties 3 nights a week with Dad's money. That was Dad's definition of us being in different positions that justified the completely unequal treatment. That's when I realized Dad wasn't ever going to see me as anything other than the mistake that derailed his life. Nothing I accomplished would matter, because in his eyes, I wasn't supposed to exist in the first place. I was a living reminder of everything he'd given up. So I stopped expecting anything from him. Stopped calling home except when Mom answered the phone. Stopped coming back for holidays unless Mom specifically asked, and even then I'd make excuses. Built a life that had absolutely nothing to do with Dad's approval, because I was never going to get it anyway. I graduated college with a degree in mechanical engineering, and a job offer already lined up before my final semester even ended. Got hired by a reputable manufacturing company in another state designing production equipment and automation systems for automotive assembly lines. The starting salary was decent. Nothing spectacular, but enough to finally feel like I could breathe financially for the first time in years. Packed up my beat-up Honda Civic with everything I owned, which fit in the car pretty easily since I didn't own much beyond clothes, a laptop, some engineering textbooks, and basic kitchen supplies, and moved 8 hours away without any fanfare. Barely even said goodbye beyond a quick text to Mom, letting her know I'd arrived safely. Started building the life I actually wanted, instead of trying to fit into the one Dad had decided I wasn't worthy of being part of. The job was good. Nothing glamorous, but solid pay around $45,000 to start with decent benefits and clear room for advancement if I worked hard. I could afford my own apartment without needing roommates to split rent. Could buy groceries and eat real meals instead of surviving on ramen and peanut butter. Could start making actual payments on those student loans instead of just watching the interest accumulate month after month while I struggled. Meanwhile, Tyler bounced around for several years after college, like a pinball in a machine. Got a business degree, but couldn't hold down a job for more than 6 months at a time. Tried selling insurance, hated it within 3 months and quit. Tried real estate, attended one training class and decided it wasn't for him. Worked at a car dealership selling sedans, got fired after 6 months for missing too many days and showing up late constantly. Every single failed job, Dad had ready-made excuses. The boss was unreasonable and didn't appreciate Tyler's potential. The insurance industry was struggling because of market conditions. Real estate required too much self-motivation, and Tyler needed more structure. The car dealership had impossible sales quotas that nobody could meet. Always someone else's fault. Always external circumstances. Never Tyler's responsibility. But when I changed jobs after 2 years to get a better position with more pay and better projects, Dad said I was being flaky and needed to learn commitment. Said job hopping looked bad on a resume. Said employers wanted loyalty. This from the same man who made excuses for Tyler quitting 3 different jobs in 18 months. By the time I was 25, I'd gotten recruited to a major aerospace company based in the Southwest. Good salary, great benefits, interesting work on projects that actually mattered. Started working on military contracts, defense systems, satellite components. Bought my first house. Small 2-bedroom starter home. But it was mine. No roommates, no landlord, just my name on the deed. Around the same time, Tyler moved back in with our parents after his girlfriend kicked him out of her apartment for not paying rent. He was 22 years old, unemployed for the 3rd time in as many years, and crashing in his old childhood bedroom playing video games 18 hours a day, while Dad kept insisting he was between opportunities and figuring out his path. I visited Mom for her birthday that year. First time I'd been home in almost 18 months because I'd been actively avoiding going back. Walked in and found Tyler on the couch in the same sweatpants he'd probably been wearing for 4 days, playing video games at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Asked what he was up to, and he said he was networking online and exploring entrepreneurial opportunities. He was playing Call of Duty with a bag of chips on his stomach and hadn't showered in what looked like multiple days based on his hair. Dad came home from work and immediately lit up seeing Tyler like someone had switched on a light bulb. Didn't even acknowledge me for the first 10 full minutes. When he finally said hello, it was just a quick nod before he went right back to asking Tyler about his job search and whether he'd heard back from any applications yet. That night at dinner, Dad went on and on about how proud he was of Tyler for taking his time to find the right opportunity instead of jumping at the first thing available and settling like some people do. Actually looked right at me when he said the settling part. I'd just been promoted to senior engineer, was making more money than Dad had ever earned in his entire career. Owned my own house while Tyler was unemployed and living in his childhood bedroom at 22. But somehow I was the one settling by Dad's logic. That was the last family dinner I attended for 2 full years. Then things started really changing in my favor. I got recruited by a major defense contractor operating out of Virginia. Huge salary bump. Nearly double what I'd been making. Stock options that would vest over 5 years. Company car. Moving expenses paid in full. The kind of job that gets your name mentioned in industry trade publications and conference programs. Started traveling for work constantly, meeting with military brass and government officials about weapon systems contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Attended Pentagon briefings. Reviewed classified specifications. The whole 9 yards. It was intense and stressful, but also incredibly validating to be trusted with that level of responsibility. Didn't tell my parents about any of it. Mom would occasionally hear through friends or distant relatives who'd seen something online and call to congratulate me. But I kept Dad on a strict information diet. He hadn't cared about my successes for the previous 25 years of my life. So why should he suddenly get to hear about them now? Tyler, meanwhile, was still finding himself at 24, had moved back in with our parents for the third time after losing yet another job, was working part-time at a sporting goods store folding t-shirts and restocking shelves, talking constantly about starting a business, flipping cars despite having zero money and zero mechanical knowledge about what made a car valuable. Dad was still making excuses for him like it was his full-time job. Tyler was entrepreneurial, had vision and ambition, just needed the right break to come along. Meanwhile, I was dismissed as the boring corporate engineer who'd chosen a safe, predictable path instead of taking risks and chasing dreams like Tyler allegedly was. The irony was completely lost on Dad that Tyler's biggest risk was betting on parental support lasting forever while contributing absolutely nothing. Then came the phone call that changed absolutely everything. I was 27 years old. Mom called me at work one Thursday afternoon, crying so hard I could barely understand what she was saying. Immediately made me think something terrible had happened. Turned out Dad had suffered a serious heart attack at the manufacturing plant. Collapsed on the factory floor during his shift. Not fatal, but serious enough to require emergency surgery and months of recovery afterward. I drove home that weekend, 8 hours straight through. Dad was still in the hospital recovering from the emergency procedure. Went to see him in the cardiac unit. He looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. All that anger and resentment he'd carried around for decades had physically worn him down. He didn't apologize for anything. Didn't acknowledge the years of blatant favoritism and emotional cruelty. Just said he was glad I came and asked surface-level questions about my job. Small talk. Weather-level conversation. Like we were distant acquaintances catching up instead of father and son dealing with a life-threatening medical emergency. I kept the visit short and professional. Told Mom I'd help with medical bills if insurance didn't cover everything, then drove back to my life 8 hours away. The heart attack forced Dad into early retirement. Couldn't physically handle the demanding shift supervisor job anymore. His pension and disability payments covered basic living expenses, but their retirement situation was significantly tighter than they'd planned. Mom was still working at the dental office, but they were cutting expenses everywhere they could. Tyler still lived with them rent-free. Still wasn't contributing financially in any meaningful way. Still was pursuing his entrepreneurial dreams, which mostly involved watching business podcasts on YouTube and posting motivational quotes on social media about hustle culture and grinding while working 15 hours a week at the sporting goods store. 6 months after the heart attack, Dad called me directly for the first time in literally years. I almost didn't answer because I saw his name on the caller ID, and my immediate instinct was to decline it. "Hey," he said, voice awkward and uncertain. "How have you been?" "Fine. What do you need?" He stumbled through uncomfortable small talk for about a minute before finally getting to the actual point of the call. They were having serious financial trouble. Medical bills were piling up faster than they could pay them. Mom's hours had been cut at the dental office. Tyler was still looking for a good full-time opportunity. Could I help them out financially? The sheer audacity was absolutely breathtaking. 27 years of being treated like a burden and an unwanted mistake. And now he wanted money from me. "How much are we talking?" I asked. "Well, we're about $15,000 behind on various bills. The house payment is 3 months late, medical bills are probably another $8,000, and the credit cards we used for expenses are maxed out. How much has Tyler contributed to this?" Dead silence on the phone. "He's between jobs right now, you know that. And he's got his own expenses. He's trying to get his car flipping business started. So nothing. Tyler's contributed absolutely nothing to the household. That's not fair. He's in a different position than you are. You've got that big corporate job with the defense contractor. The job I paid for myself with student loans I'm still paying off. The career I built while Tyler got a completely free ride through college and still somehow couldn't figure out how to be a functioning adult." More uncomfortable silence. I just thought, family helps family out in tough times. The phrase actually made me laugh out loud. Actually laugh. Bitter and sharp and humorless. Family helps family. That's rich coming from you. Where was family when I was working 2 jobs to afford textbooks? Where was family when my car died and I had to figure it out completely alone? Where was family at my graduation, my promotion, any single moment in my life that actually mattered? I know I wasn't perfect. You weren't a father, not to me. You made it very clear for my entire childhood and adult life that I was the mistake that ruined your plans. So here's what I'm going to do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm going to do exactly what you did for me. Figure it out yourself. I hung up before he could respond. Mom called about an hour later, crying harder than she'd cried when Dad had the heart attack. I told her calmly that I'd pay her medical bills directly if she sent me the statements. But I wasn't giving Dad a single penny. She could come stay with me if she wanted to leave him, but I was completely done pretending we were a functional family. She said I was being cruel and heartless. Maybe I was. But I learned cruelty from an absolute expert. The house went into foreclosure proceedings 3 months later. Mom and Dad had to move into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town. Tyler moved right along with them because he still had nowhere else to go and absolutely no money to live independently. My career kept climbing steadily upward. Got promoted to program director overseeing multiple major contracts. Was managing a team of 40 engineers working on a $500 million missile defense project. Got written up in industry journals and trade publications. Gave keynote presentations at engineering conferences. Everything Dad could have been proud of if he'd ever actually seen me as worthwhile, instead of as the accident that derailed his baseball dreams. Then came the event that brought absolutely everything to a head. I won a major industry achievement award from the National Defense Industrial Association. Huge deal in the aerospace and defense sector. Came with a formal ceremony at a hotel in Washington, D.C., national recognition in the industry, and a significant cash prize of $50,000. The kind of accomplishment that gets announced in press releases and mentioned in industry publications for months afterward. The day after the public announcement, Dad called my cell phone. I saw his name and almost sent it to voicemail out of habit. "Saw the news about your award," he said, trying to sound casual and proud. "That's really something impressive." "Thanks," I replied flatly. "Your mother and I would love to come to the ceremony. Support you. When is it scheduled for?" The ceremony was in 6 weeks. I hadn't planned on inviting them. Hadn't even told them I'd been nominated months earlier. It's invitation only, small venue, limited capacity. Well, surely you can get your own parents in. We'd love to be there to support you and see you get recognized for your work. That word, support, coming from him felt like an actual physical slap across the face. "Why?" I asked simply. "What do you mean, why? You're my son. I want to see you get recognized for your accomplishments." Where was that energy for the last 27 years of my life? He got immediately defensive, as I knew he would. Started listing times he'd allegedly supported me. Came to some football games when he could get away from work. Helped me move into my first apartment once. Basic bare minimum dad stuff that he somehow thought balanced out decades of systematic emotional neglect and favoritism. "You told me I was a mistake," I said quietly but firmly. Multiple times. Starting when I was 8 years old. "You said Tyler was the son you'd actually wanted and planned for. You paid for his entire life. College, cars, rent, everything, while I worked for every single thing I got. You made it very clear where I stood in this family. I was frustrated back then. I was young and didn't know how to handle it. I didn't mean those things. Yes, you absolutely did. You meant every single word. And now that I've succeeded completely despite you rather than because of you, suddenly you want to be involved in my life? That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk to me about fair? You charged me rent at 16 years old. You refused to help with college expenses. You skipped my graduation. You've missed every important moment of my life because you were too busy worshiping Tyler and making excuses for his failures. And now you want an invitation to my award ceremony? I'm your father." No, a real father shows up for his kids. A real father supports all his children equally. A real father doesn't spend 27 years making one son feel completely worthless while handing the other son everything on a silver platter. You're just the guy whose genetics I happen to share. That's the extent of our relationship. I want to make things right between us. You can't. Some things don't get fixed with an apology. You made your choices consistently for nearly 3 decades. Now you get to live with those choices. I hung up on him. Blocked his number in my phone. Blocked his email address. Didn't invite him to the ceremony. The award ceremony itself was absolutely incredible. My entire engineering team was there celebrating with me. My girlfriend Emily flew in from her job in Boston. Some old college friends I'd stayed close with made the trip to D.C. People who actually cared about me as a person celebrated my success authentically. The people who should have been there by biology weren't, and I honestly didn't miss them at all. After the ceremony during the reception, one of my senior colleagues asked why my parents weren't there for such a major career milestone. I told him simply that we weren't close and left it at that. He looked genuinely confused and said his own father wouldn't have missed something like this for anything in the world. Must be nice to have that kind of father, I thought, but didn't say out loud. I posted exactly one photo from the event on social media. Just me holding the award plaque, smiling genuinely. Didn't mention who wasn't there or make any pointed comments. Didn't need to. Mom commented, So proud of you, sweetheart. No mention of dad whatsoever. Tyler didn't comment at all. Didn't even like the post. 2 weeks after the ceremony, Tyler called my cell phone out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in over a year at that point. Hey man, congrats on the big award. That's really cool. Thanks, I said carefully. Look, I wanted to talk to you about something kind of serious. Dad's really struggling with what happened between you two. He feels terrible about everything. He should feel terrible. I know he wasn't perfect growing up, but he's still our dad, and he's really not doing well right now. The stress of everything, the financial problems, feeling like he's lost you, it's honestly killing him. And I think you should give him another chance. He genuinely wants to apologize, wants to try to build an actual relationship with you. He's different now. The heart attack changed him. Is he actually different? Or does he just want access to my money and my success now that I have both? Tyler got defensive immediately. Started saying I was being unfair and holding grudges and not understanding how hard things had actually been for Dad all these years. I let him talk himself completely out before responding calmly. Tyler, do you know why Dad treated us so differently our entire childhood? What do you mean? I was the unplanned pregnancy that ruined his baseball scholarship and his entire future. You were the planned son he actually wanted after he'd adjusted to his life. That's why you got absolutely everything while I got nothing. He resented me for existing and ruining his dreams. That's not, I mean, he never said anything like that to me. Of course he didn't. He said it to me. Multiple times over many years. You were the golden child who could do no wrong. So you never saw any of it. But I lived it every single day. Silence on the phone line. I honestly didn't know it was that bad for you. How could you know? You were too busy being the favorite and getting everything handed to you on a silver platter. More uncomfortable silence. What do you want me to say here? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. Just stop calling me about Dad and his feelings. His emotional state isn't my problem anymore. He made that choice a long time ago. We're still family, though. Family is supposed to be there for you when you need them. Where was family when I actually needed support? Now that I don't need anything from any of you, suddenly everyone wants a relationship? That's not how this works. So you're just going to cut us all off permanently? I didn't cut anyone off. I'm just done pretending we're something we never actually were. You all made your choices over and over for decades. Now you get to live with the natural consequences of those choices. I hung up. Haven't spoken to Tyler since that conversation. Mom and I still talk occasionally on the phone. She's caught in an impossible middle position, which I do feel somewhat bad about, but I'm absolutely not budging on Dad. She understands my position even if she wishes things could be different. She's made her choice to stay with him, and I've made my choice to maintain distance. Last I heard through Mom, Dad and Tyler are still living together in that small apartment. Dad's disability payments barely cover the basics of rent and utilities. Tyler finally got a full-time job working at a call center doing customer service, though he apparently still talks constantly about his business plans and entrepreneurial opportunities that never seem to materialize into anything real. They're struggling financially and emotionally. I'm not struggling at all. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 2. I built Dad's business from the ground up after dropping out of uni, while my golden brother went on to study and work in finance. After 7 years of grinding, my dad wanted to give my brother half of everything I worked hard for. I went scorched earth. All right, Reddit. So I spent 7 years turning my dad's dying $300,000 shop into an $8 million empire. Then he brought in my finance bro brother, who'd never held a wrench, to be my CEO at the same salary. So I took the clients, the crew, and started my own shop 3 miles away. Now I'm pulling 1.2 million monthly while they face karma. Grab some popcorn and enjoy the chaos. My old man started Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair in 1989, back when a handshake meant something, and your reputation was the only marketing you needed. 36 years of crawling under excavators, rebuilding transmissions, and keeping construction companies running. I, 32 male, grew up in that shop. Started at 11, sweeping floors and organizing bolts. By 14, I could diagnose a failing hydraulic pump by sound alone. Spent every summer and weekend there while my older brother Drew was off doing whatever golden children do. Soccer camps, SAT prep, networking events, apparently. Drew's 38 now, 6 years older than me. Always been Mom and Dad's pride and joy. The one who made it out, got his finance degree from a decent university, landed a job at some investment firm downtown. Dad used to show off Drew's business cards at family gatherings like they were Olympic medals. Meanwhile, I'd show up with diesel fuel on my boots and get asked when I was going to do something real with my life. I tried the college thing. Really did. Enrolled in mechanical engineering with a business minor, figured I'd come back with credentials that'd make Dad respect what I was doing. Lasted exactly 1 semester. Sitting in lecture halls while some professor who'd never held a wrench explained theoretical load distributions felt like a waste of time I didn't have. The shop needed help. Dad was drowning in work and couldn't afford to hire anyone decent. So I dropped out, told Dad I wanted in for real, and he said the magic words, "Stick with me, kid. Build this thing right, and someday it'll be yours." That was 7 years ago, 2018. The shop was pulling maybe 300,000 annually. Dad was working himself to death, and we had 3 part-time mechanics who showed up when they felt like it. Our fleet was one van that broke down more than the equipment we serviced. I changed everything. First move, specialize. Dad took any job that walked through the door, fixing some farmer's tractor, servicing a contractor's pickup, whatever. I said no. We went industrial only. Construction equipment, mining rigs, municipal vehicles, commercial fleets. Companies with maintenance budgets and recurring contracts, not one-off jobs paying peanuts. Then I pitched a concept that sounded insane. 24/7 emergency service. Every other shop in the area closed at 5. But construction companies need their loaders running at 6 a.m. Mines operate around the clock. Logistics companies can't afford downtime. So we started offering after-hours emergency repairs at premium rates. Double for nights, triple for holidays. Suddenly, every site foreman in 3 counties had my cell number. Within 18 months, we went from 1 van to 8. From 3 unreliable guys to 20 solid mechanics. I implemented digital work orders, GPS tracking on the service vehicles, and inventory management that actually made sense. Dad kept working on tools because he couldn't help himself, but I was running everything else. Sales, operations, crew management, client relations. The older mechanics tested me hard at first. Some kid in his 20s telling veterans how to run jobs? Yeah, that went over great. But I shut them up fast. By year 4, we hit 40 employees and 12 service trucks. Revenue jumped from 300,000 to 4.2 million. By year 6, we were pushing 8 million annually with 53 employees and 18 vehicles. $8 million. Dad and I were both drawing 160,000 salaries, more than double what he'd made before. But we weren't exactly rich. Most profit got reinvested, but we were building something real. Our client retention rate was 94%. When companies needed emergency service, they called us first. The crew respected me because I never asked them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I'd taught most of them advanced hydraulics diagnostics. Drew, meanwhile, was living his best life downtown. Nice condo, nice car, nice suits. He'd visit maybe twice a year, usually around holidays, always making these subtle comments about how I should have finished my education or developed some professional ambition. Professional ambition. Right. Like turning a struggling 300,000 operation into an $8 million company while he shuffled Excel sheets wasn't ambitious enough. My girlfriend Jen, now fiance, but we'll get there, actually understood what I did. When I'd come home at midnight smelling like hydraulic fluid, she'd just laugh and throw my clothes straight in the wash. Her dad ran a plumbing company, so she got it. She respected the work. Mom and Dad? They hated her from day one. "She's not refined enough," Mom said once. Translation: Jen grew up working class, didn't do the whole pageant smile thing, and wasn't impressed by Dad's stories about the family legacy. At family dinners, Mom would ask pointed questions about Jen's career trajectory and whether she'd be continuing to work after marriage. Dad barely acknowledged her existence. What they really wanted was for Drew to give them grandchildren. Mom dropped hints constantly, showed Drew pictures of his friends' kids, talked about how nice it would be to have little ones around before they got too old. Then came Dad's 67th birthday dinner 3 months ago. That's when everything went sideways. We're all there, me, Jen, Drew, Mom, Dad, at this nice steakhouse Dad likes. Dad orders his 3rd drink and starts talking numbers. Mentions the shop's doing nearly 8 million now. Mentions his declining health. The decades of asbestos exposure are catching up, plus arthritis in both hands. Drew perks up like a hunting dog catching scent. 8 million? Seriously? Gross revenue, I clarify. Margins aren't huge after costs. But Drew's already doing math in his head. I can see it. And Dad's got this look like he's about to announce something big. "I've been thinking about succession," Dad says. "About legacy. About family. Here we go. Drew, I know you've done well in finance. Built yourself a good career. But I was hoping you might consider coming home. working with your brother, building this business together. Drew actually laughs. Dad, I appreciate the thought, but I make $180,000 a year managing portfolios. I'm not exactly looking to get my hands dirty. You wouldn't have to, Dad says, leaning forward. That's what your brother does. I'm talking about bringing real business strategy to the operation, proper financial management, growth planning. And just like that, I see where this is heading. We could professionalize the whole operation, Drew continues, warming to the idea now. Bring in systems, processes, scale it properly. With my financial background and management experience, the business has scaled just fine, I interrupt. We went from 300,000 to 8 million in 7 years. That's impressive, Drew says with that condescending smile he does. But there's a difference between working hard and working smart. Dad built a great foundation, but without proper business framework, I implemented the framework. Every system we use, every process, every client contract, I built that. Mom jumps in. Drew has education, sweetheart. He understands corporate strategy in ways you couldn't possibly. Because I dropped out. Awkward silence. Jen squeezes my hand under the table. Dad's looking excited. Mom's looking smug. Drew's looking like he just discovered a $20 bill in his pocket. Let's talk more about this, Dad says. I think having both my sons working together could be something special. A real family business. I should have seen it coming. Should have known Dad's "someday this'll be yours" promise had an expiration date. But I actually believed him. I'd earned it. I'd built it. That had to count for something. Turns out blood counts more. And Drew's blood apparently came with a business degree, which made it premium vintage. The calls started the next day. Dad wanting to explore the opportunity. Drew sending me articles about family business succession planning. Mom talking about how wonderful it would be to have both sons working together, how it was Dad's dream come true. Nobody asked what I wanted. Nobody mentioned that I'd spent 7 years building this empire while Drew collected paychecks somewhere else. But hey, family's family, right? 2 weeks later, Dad called a formal meeting with lawyers. That's when I knew I was screwed. Dad's estate attorney sat behind a mahogany desk with documents stacked like artillery shells. I walked in expecting a conversation about eventually buying Dad out, maybe discussing partnership terms. What I got was a corporate execution disguised as a family reunion. Dad started with the softening up routine, talked about legacy, about keeping the business in the family, about his dream of seeing his sons work together. Drew sat there in his Brooks Brothers suit, looking like he was attending a board meeting at Goldman Sachs instead of discussing a diesel repair shop. Then the attorney slid paperwork across the desk. The proposal. Dad would transition ownership over the next 12 months. Final split, 45% to Drew, 45% to me, 10% retained by Dad as advisory shares. Drew would come on as CEO at $210,000 annually. I'd be COO, Chief Operating Officer, which sounds important until you realize it means doing all the actual work while someone else gets credit. This structure provides optimal management efficiency, the attorney explained in that bloodless voice. Drew's financial expertise combined with your operational knowledge creates complementary leadership. Complementary, like I was the sidekick in my own story. Drew will handle strategic planning, financial management, and business development, Dad continued. You'll manage the day-to-day operations, crew oversight, the technical side. So I do what I've been doing, I said slowly. And Drew does. What exactly? Executive leadership, Drew said. Setting direction, building frameworks, managing growth strategy. The things that require MBA-level thinking. MBA-level thinking. About a business he'd never worked in. Serving clients he'd never met. In an industry he didn't understand. I've already drafted a 5-year growth plan, Drew added, pulling out his own document. Standardization of service protocols, expansion into 3 additional markets, implementation of 6 Sigma quality management. 6 Sigma? We fix excavators, not manufacture semiconductors. That attitude is exactly why we need professional management. Drew smiled like he was explaining arithmetic to a child. Dad built something great here, and you've done solid work maintaining it. But to really scale, I scaled it. From 300,000 to 8 million. That was me. Using Dad's foundation, Mom interjected. She'd been quiet until now, lurking in the corner like a spider. You had every advantage. His reputation, his client base, his facilities. Drew's building his success from scratch in a competitive industry. From scratch. In a competitive industry. As if I'd inherited a thriving empire instead of a struggling shop that barely covered rent. What happens if I say no? I asked. The room went cold. Dad looked uncomfortable. Drew looked annoyed. The attorney looked like this wasn't his first succession fight. Then I sell to a third party, Dad said quietly. I'm 67, son. My lungs are shot. Arthritis is getting worse. I need to transition this business before I can't anymore. Either it stays in the family, or it doesn't. Family means both sons, Mom added. Not just one. There it was. The ultimatum wrapped in emotional manipulation. Accept Drew as my boss, or watch Dad sell the business I'd built to strangers. And the salary split? I asked the attorney. Why does Drew get the same as me when I've been here 7 years, and he's been here 7 minutes? Executive positions command commensurate compensation, the attorney said. CEO and COO roles traditionally align in similarly sized operations. Plus, Drew added, leaning back in his chair, I'm taking a pay cut from my current position. Leaving $180,000 to come make $210,000 is barely an upgrade when you factor in career risk. Career risk. Coming to run a business that was already successful. Career risk. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I nodded, smiled, asked a few clarifying questions, told them I needed time to think. Don't take too long, Dad said as I stood to leave. I'd like this resolved before the holidays. Walking out, I called Jen. We need to talk. How bad? Nuclear. Next morning, I called Dad. I've thought about it. Let's move forward with the plan. Dad sounded relieved, excited even. That's wonderful, son. Drew's already putting together onboarding materials. He's very thorough. I'm sure he is. Oh, and one more thing. Drew mentioned it might be good if you dressed more professionally when he starts. Business casual at minimum. First impressions matter when we're building this new structure. Business casual. At a diesel repair shop where I spent half my time under vehicles. Business casual, so I'd look executive before what? Sure, Dad. Whatever Drew thinks is best. I hung up and immediately started planning my exit. Because forget this entire situation. But first, I needed to understand exactly how much damage I could do on my way out. Drew's first day at Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair looked like a LinkedIn influencer's fantasy. He showed up in slate gray slacks, a pressed button-down, and leather dress shoes that probably cost more than my truck payment, to a shop where we service mining equipment, where the concept of staying clean is a cruel joke the universe plays on mechanics. Dad gave him the full tour, introducing him to every crew member like he was presenting the crown prince to his subjects. This is my son Drew. He'll be helping us take the company to the next level. Most of the guys just nodded, shook his hand, went back to work. But I saw the looks, the raised eyebrows. Big Tommy, my lead foreman who'd been with me since year 2, caught my eye and made a subtle, what the heck gesture. Drew's tour lasted about 30 minutes before he retreated to the office we'd cleared out for him. Within an hour, he'd rearranged the furniture and was on a call with some consultant about operational optimization. I spent the day working on a transmission rebuild for one of our mining clients. Around 3 p.m., Drew emerged from his office, carefully stepping around oil stains like they might attack him. Hey, can we talk about the crew's scheduling inefficiencies? He called over the pneumatic tools. I wiped my hands on a rag. What inefficiencies? Well, I've been reviewing the logs, and there's significant variance in job completion times. Some jobs that should take 2 hours are taking 4. That's unacceptable. Those are estimates. Real-world repairs don't follow a spreadsheet. With proper training and standardization, these guys are master mechanics with decades of experience. They're not the problem. Drew frowned. Then what is? Nothing. We complete 96% of jobs at or under estimated time. That's industry leading. According to whose metrics? According to having actual experience in this industry. Tense silence. A few mechanics pretended not to watch while absolutely watching. Look, Drew said, lowering his voice slightly. I get that this is an adjustment, but Dad brought me in for a reason. I have skills you don't. And if we're going to work together, you mean if I'm going to work under you? I mean if we're going to build something bigger than either of us could alone. Corporate buzzword bingo. He'd hit 3 cliches in one sentence. Impressive, really. That evening, Dad called me into his office. Mom was there too. Never a good sign. Drew mentioned you were resistant today, Dad started. I answered his questions. With an attitude, Mom added. He's trying to help. The least you could do is show some respect. Respect? For a guy who'd worked exactly 0 days in this industry, who couldn't diagnose a blown head gasket if his life depended on it, who was being handed co-ownership of a business he'd contributed nothing to building. I'm trying to adjust, I said carefully. It's a big change. Speaking of change, Mom continued, Dad and I have been talking. Now that Drew's coming back and building his life here, we're hoping he'll settle down, start a family. Here we go. That's great, I said neutrally. We think it's time for grandchildren, before we're too old to enjoy them. She paused. Drew's at a good place in life for that. Stable, mature, ready to be a father. The implication hung there like hydraulic smoke. Drew was the suitable parent. Drew would provide the acceptable grandchildren. I was the perpetual screw-up with the unrefined girlfriend who wore jeans to family dinner. Jen and I are engaged, I said. We're thinking of setting a date. Mom's face did something complicated. That's your choice. We just think Drew's path might be more aligned with what this family needs right now. This family needs grandkids through the right son. Got it. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. Your mother's just expressing that Drew's in a more stable position. Because he didn't waste his life in a shop, I finished. Yeah, I understand perfectly. I left before saying something I'd regret, or something I wouldn't regret, which was more likely. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in corporate colonization. Drew implemented morning stand-up meetings where mechanics had to report their planned activities for the day. He introduced a process improvement submission system that nobody used. He hired a business consultant at $15,000 for a 3-month contract to assess our operational efficiency. The crew was miserable. Tommy came to me at the end of week 2. Boss, he said. They all called me boss, not Drew. What the heck is happening? Half the guys are looking for other jobs. This corporate nonsense doesn't work in our business. I know. Then do something. I'm working on it. What I was working on. An exit strategy that would crater their operations so thoroughly they'd feel it for years. I started with client meetings, casual check-ins with our major accounts, the relationships I'd built personally over 7 years. Mentioned I might be making some moves soon, asked if they'd be interested in continuing to work with me specifically. 8 out of 10 said yes immediately. These weren't Dad's clients. They were mine. Then I approached the crew, individually, carefully, starting with the guys I trusted most. Asked if they'd be interested in jumping ship if I started something new. 12 mechanics said yes within a week. The best ones. The guys who could handle complex hydraulics, electrical diagnostics, the skilled work that separated great shops from mediocre ones. Found a warehouse space 3 miles away. Smaller than our current facility, but enough to start. Used most of my savings plus a $150,000 loan from Jen's dad, who understood the situation better than my own parents, to lease the space and buy basic equipment. The whole time I smiled, nodded, went along with Drew's idiotic initiatives, wore the business casual clothes Dad requested, played the obedient little brother role. 3 weeks later, I was ready. Everything lined up. Clients secured, crew committed, space leased, equipment purchased. Time to introduce Drew to the concept of consequences. I picked a Monday morning for maximum impact. Drew had scheduled one of his ridiculous strategic planning sessions for 9 a.m., which meant the whole crew would be there watching him prattle on about synergies or whatever. I arrived at 7 earlier than usual. Dad was already there, old habits die hard, working on something in Bay 3. Morning, I said. Morning, son. Coffee's fresh. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. We went to his office. I had a folder with me, my resignation letter, copies of my new business registration, the lease agreement for my warehouse, and a list of the clients who'd committed to moving with me. Professional, clean, undeniable. I'm leaving, I said, starting my own shop. Most of your major clients are coming with me, along with 12 of our best mechanics. Here's my formal notice. Dad just stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. You're, what? Leaving. I'm not going to spend the next 30 years playing second fiddle to someone who doesn't know a hydraulic pump from a hole in the ground. These clients? Dad's voice went hollow. That's Morrison Construction, Bridgeport Patterson Mining. These are our biggest. They're my clients, Dad. I built those relationships. They trust me, not the company name. And they've agreed to move their business to my new operation. This is theft. It's competition. You wanted Drew to bring professional business practices? Well, here's one. Non-compete clauses. You never had me sign one. Neither did the mechanics. So legally, ethically, I'm in the clear. Dad's face went red. After everything I did for you, you gave me a job. I turned it into an empire. There's a difference. I was going to give you half. You were going to give me 45%, same as the guy who showed up last month with 0 experience, and you were going to make him my boss. That's not a gift. That's an insult. The door opened. Drew walked in, saw the document spread across Dad's desk, and his expression went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds. What's this? Your brother's betraying us, Dad said. I'm competing with you. Again, there's a difference. Drew snatched up my client list. You can't just steal our accounts? Watch me. I built those relationships over 7 years while you were moving money around in spreadsheets. They're coming with me because they value competence. This is sabotage. We'll sue you for what? Starting a business in an industry I know? You'd lose, and you know it. No non-compete, no confidentiality agreements, no proprietary trade secrets. Dad never believed in that corporate nonsense, remember? Drew looked at Dad like he'd just realized his father was an idiot. You didn't have him sign a non-compete? I trusted him, Dad said quietly. Yeah, well, trust doesn't mean much when he's stealing our business, Drew shot back. I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking what's mine. By now, other mechanics were arriving for the morning shift. Tommy poked his head in, saw the situation, and gave me a slight nod. I walked out of the office and addressed the crew. 12 guys who'd been with me for years, who knew this moment was coming. Morning, everyone. Quick announcement. I'm leaving to start my own operation. For those of you who've already committed to joining me, we start at the new facility Wednesday morning. For everyone else, no hard feelings. You're good mechanics, and I respect whatever choice you make. Dead silence. Then Tommy spoke up. What's the address, boss? I gave it. 11 other mechanics pulled out their phones and typed it in. Drew burst out of the office. You can't do this. You're destroying the business. Mom appeared. She'd been in the back office somewhere, probably listening to the whole thing. Her face was cold fury. You ungrateful little... Careful, Mom. Wouldn't want to say something you can't take back. After everything we gave you, everything we sacrificed. This is about that girl, isn't it? Mom's voice dropped to a sneer. She's been in your ear, telling you deserve more. Jen's the only person who actually supported what I built. Unlike my family. She's not family, Mom said. And she never will be. We wanted Drew to give us grandchildren because at least we know they'd be raised right. There it was. Everything they'd been implying for months finally said out loud. I was the expendable son with the wrong girlfriend, and Drew was the golden child who'd provide acceptable heirs. Well, enjoy Drew's hypothetical grandkids, I said. I'll enjoy my actual business. I walked out. Tommy and the others followed. We loaded our personal tools into trucks and left without another word. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Drew was standing in the parking lot, suit already dirty from who knows what, looking like a man who just realized his executive position came with actual work attached. Dad stood in the doorway of the shop, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. Mom was on her phone, probably calling relatives to complain about my betrayal. And me? I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of expectation, of family obligation, of playing the grateful little brother, all of it gone. Time to build something real, something mine, something they couldn't take away because they decided the wrong son deserved it. Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair opened for business, Wednesday at 6 a.m., 4 service bays, 12 mechanics, enough equipment to handle our initial client load, and 0 corporate nonsense. By noon, we'd completed 4 jobs. By the end of week 1, we were booked solid for 3 weeks out. Morrison Construction transferred their entire fleet maintenance contract, worth $1.8 million annually, on day 3. Bridgeport followed. Patterson Mining called personally to confirm they were moving all their business over. Turns out when you build real relationships, clients follow the person, not the company name. Who knew? The crew worked their tails off, but they were smiling. I paid them 18% more than the old shop, gave them better schedules, and treated them like the skilled professionals they were instead of cogs in some corporate machine. Within 3 weeks, I hired 4 more mechanics. Within 6 weeks, we'd leased additional space in the building next door and expanded to 6 bays. The loan from Jen's dad was for $150,000 over 3 years, but at our current growth rate, I'd have it paid back in 14 months. Meanwhile, the old shop was hemorrhaging. I heard through industry contacts that they'd lost 3 more mechanics in the first month, guys who weren't thrilled about Drew's process improvement initiatives or his habit of explaining their own jobs to them. My phone exploded with calls from my family. Dad called 53 times in the first week. Mom left voicemails ranging from angry to guilt-trippy to borderline hysterical. Drew sent emails with subject lines like legal consequences and theft of proprietary information that his lawyer probably told him not to send. I ignored all of them because I was too busy building something that actually worked. Jen and I set a wedding date. Next summer, small ceremony, just close friends and her family. My family wasn't invited. That conversation with Mom about being raised right had burned whatever bridge was left. 3 months in, we hit $420,000 in monthly revenue, hired 6 more mechanics, upgraded our equipment, implemented a trainee program for younger guys wanting to learn the trade. The business I'd envisioned, based on skill, respect, and actually giving a darn about the work, was becoming real. Around month 4, I got a voicemail from Drew. His voice sounded different, tired, defeated. "We need to talk. Please, it's urgent." I deleted it. 2 days later, another voicemail. This time from Dad, and he sounded worse than I'd ever heard him. "Son, please call me back. We made mistakes. We need help." I almost called back. Almost. But then I remembered. Everyone's replaceable. That's what Drew said. "You had advantages," Dad said. "She'll never be family," Mom said. So I let the voicemail sit there, unplayed, while I got back to work. Month 5, my cousin Alex called. "Dude, your dad's shop is dying. They're down to maybe 20 employees, lost most of their major clients. And Drew apparently had a complete meltdown last week. Screamed at a mechanic for suggesting a repair approach, and the guy just walked out. Sounds like optimal operational efficiency to me. Your dad's asking about you. Wants to know if you'd consider talking." "About what? Coming back? Being the savior after they tried to screw me? I don't think that's what he wants. I think he's just realizing how badly he messed up. Little late for that." That's when Alex called again at 2 in the morning. "Your dad collapsed at the shop," Alex said without preamble. "He's at Memorial Hospital. It's bad." I was out of bed before I'd fully processed the words. Jen grabbed her keys without asking questions. 20 minutes later, we were in the ER waiting room. Mom was there, looking like she'd aged 10 years and 6 months. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Not the manipulative tears from before. These were real. "They think it's a heart attack," she said, "combined with the asbestosis complications. He's in surgery now. Where's Drew?" Her face hardened. "I called him 4 hours ago. He said he'd come, but nothing." We waited. Finally, a doctor emerged. "Mr. Rodriguez is stable, but barely. The heart attack was severe. Combined with his existing lung damage, we're looking at extensive care requirements. He'll need monitoring, medication, potentially home oxygen. The costs will be significant." "How significant?" Mom asked. "Initial hospitalization will run about $180,000. Ongoing treatment could be $5,000 to $10,000 monthly, depending on complications." Mom went pale. "We don't have that. The business is failing. We already sold the house to cover debts." The doctor looked sympathetic but firm. "We can discuss payment plans. He'll need surgery within the week. A cardiac procedure, that's another $90,000 minimum. Without it, his survival odds drop significantly." "I'll cover the medical bills," I said. "All of them." Mom's head snapped up. "What? You heard me. Dad's medical care. I'll pay for it. But I have conditions." "Anything," she whispered. "First, this is for Dad's medical bills. Nothing else. Not the house, not the business, not Drew's problems. Second, I set up the accounts directly with the hospital and pharmacy. You don't see a dime of cash. Dad survived the surgery. Came out of recovery looking like death rewarmed. Tubes everywhere. Barely conscious. When he saw me, tears leaked from his eyes. "You came," he whispered, "for your health. That's it. I'm sorry. So sorry. You were right about everything." Yeah, I was. Drew finally showed up 3 days later when Dad was stable. Walked into the hospital room like he'd been there all along. "How is he?" "Alive," I said. "No thanks to you. Where were you?" "I had work commitments. I couldn't just drop everything. Dad almost died and you had work commitments." "Got it." Mom's voice was ice. "Your brother has been here every day, paying for everything. And you couldn't bother to show up for 3 days?" Drew looked uncomfortable. "I'm here now. That's what matters." "Actually, it doesn't," I said. "Per the arrangement, you contribute to Dad's care or you don't get to play concerned son. What's your contribution?" "I don't have that kind of money right now." "Then get out." Drew left. Mom didn't stop him. That's when I knew something had shifted. Over the next 2 weeks, I paid $287,000 for Dad's care. Set up automated payments for his medications. $4,800 monthly. Arranged home oxygen, physical therapy, cardiac monitoring. Everything through accounts I controlled directly. Drew called once, demanding I stop poisoning Mom against him. I hung up. He tried showing up at my shop. Tommy and 2 other mechanics escorted him off the property with a clear message. Come back, deal with cops. Dad stabilized over the following months. I kept paying his medical bills. Kept my word on that. But the boundaries held firm. No family gatherings, no we should talk conversations. Just automated payments to keep him alive and nothing more. My business kept growing. Hit $750,000 monthly revenue by month 9. Landed 3 major mining contracts and a municipal maintenance deal worth $2.3 million annually. Employed 42 people, ran 20 service vehicles, and had a waiting list of companies wanting our services. Jen and I moved the wedding up when we found out she was pregnant. Married her in her parents' backyard on a perfect October afternoon. Small ceremony, maybe 50 people, all of them actual friends or family that mattered. Her dad gave a toast about integrity, about men who understand responsibility and follow through. Drew's spiral continued. Heard through Alex that he'd moved back home with our parents into their small rental. Took a job at some regional firm, making barely $70,000. His LinkedIn profile stopped getting updates. The guy who was supposed to bring MBA-level thinking to a diesel shop was delivering pizzas on weekends to cover rent. Some lessons cost more than others. Our daughter was born on a freezing January morning. 7 pounds, healthy, perfect. We named her Elena after Jen's grandmother. When I held her for the first time, something fundamental shifted. This was real family. Not obligation, not DNA, not guilt, just choice and love, and building something worth protecting. Dad called 3 months after Elena was born. I almost didn't answer. "I heard you had a baby," he said. His voice was stronger now. Treatment's working. "Congratulations." "Thanks. I don't expect to meet her. I know the boundaries. But I wanted to say, you're going to be a better father than I was. You already are." Silence hit hard. Real recognition from a man who'd spent years not seeing me. "Drew asked me for money last week," Dad continued. "Said he needed help with bills. I told him no. Told him some people earn help. Others just expect it. Good. I don't deserve forgiveness. But you were right about everything. And I'm proud of what you built. But because it's real." We talked for 10 more minutes. No tears, no reconciliation. Just acknowledgement. 2 years later, Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair hit $1.2 million in monthly revenue. 53 employees, 23 service vehicles, 14 major contracts. Business equity north of $5 million. Drew's life kept spiraling. Lost another job. Moved back home with mom and dad into their small rental. Last I heard, he was delivering pizzas on weekends to make rent. The guy who was supposed to professionalize a diesel shop couldn't professionalize his own life. Some lessons cost everything. Elena turned 2. Smart kid, loved the shop, loved watching mechanics work. Jen was pregnant again. A boy. We'd named him Daniel after her grandfather. Real family, built on choice and love, not obligation. Mom sends birthday cards. Never pushes boundaries, never asks to visit. Just acknowledges from a distance that she lost something irreplaceable. When I look at Elena, at Jen, at the crew who believed in me from day one, and I know, respect is earned, actions have consequences, and walking away from people who don't value you isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. The shop opens at 6 a.m. I'm usually there by 5:30, coffee in hand, Elena's drawing taped to my office wall. The crew rolls in, work begins, another day of building something real with people who matter. That's the legacy Dad never understood. It's not about passing down a business. It's about teaching your kids their worth isn't negotiable, their boundaries aren't suggestions, and family is who shows up. Elena will learn that. Daniel too. They'll know respect is earned, not given. The Rodriguez name lives on, just not with the people who thought they owned it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 3. My brother texted, "Hope you die alone, you pathetic loser." A few hours later, my parents called, "Your brother's in the hospital. Send $15,000 now or he'll die." I hung up and went back to sleep. Then everything blew up. Sup Reddit. So, at 2:17 a.m., my parents called from Lake Tahoe begging for $15,000. My brother Jace was in the ER with broken ribs after a casino incident. They were broke, desperate. I told them to call my sister. Then I powered my phone off and went back to sleep. Here's why that hang-up was 10 years in the making. I, 32 male, am a structural engineer living alone in Denver. Been here 8 years. I'm the oldest of 3. My younger brother Jace is 28. Baby sister Savannah just turned 25. Dad retired early from the Nevada Highway Patrol with a pension. Mom never worked outside the house. We grew up in North Las Vegas. Nothing fancy but comfortable enough. The second Jace was born, everything changed. Golden child. Only boy besides me, but treated like the heir apparent. Future man of the family. Could do no wrong. Savannah showed up 3 years later. The princess who got everything by batting her eyelashes. Me? Take care of your siblings, Nolan. You're the oldest. That's your responsibility. Family comes first. Here's what that actually meant in dollars. $28,000 for Jace's UNLV tuition. I was 22, fresh out of college. Moved back home for a full year. Worked 3 jobs at once. Day shifts on construction sites in 110-degree Vegas heat, nights waiting tables at a restaurant off Fremont Street, weekends doing CAD freelancing. I slept 4 hours a night for 12 straight months. He dropped out after 1 year because college wasn't his vibe. Mom hugged him, said boys will be boys. Dad took him to a game to cheer him up. Nobody ever mentioned my money again. $480 a month for Savannah's Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. 4-year loan straight from my paycheck. She sent me a thank you text with heart emojis. Then posted pictures on Instagram with the caption, Big Bro Goals. Made 47 posts with that Jeep. Never once mentioned the payments I was making. $9,000 credit card bailout. Mom woke me up at 3 in the morning, completely hysterical. Credit cards maxed out on gaming setups for Jace and clothes for Savannah's content creation career. I transferred the money before I even got out of bed. Mom promised it was the last time. It wasn't. Every single time I tried to say no, the routine was identical. Mom would cry. Dad would get quiet and disappointed. Jace would call me selfish. Savannah would ghost me for weeks. So I started keeping a spreadsheet. Over the years, the bailouts kept coming. Emergency car repairs, security deposits, medical bills, temporary loans that were never repaid. It totaled $127,000. Every penny earned with my own hands. Not once did anyone say thank you like they actually meant it. It was expected. My duty. What big brothers do. I moved to Denver at 24, thinking distance would help. It didn't. The requests just switched to Venmo and Zelle. I still said yes most of the time because the guilt was heavier than my bank balance. Then I started waking up at night, staring at my ceiling, wondering if I'd ever own a place, ever start my own life, or if I was just going to bleed money back to North Las Vegas until I had nothing left. That's when it hit me. They didn't see me as their son. They saw me as an endless resource. A few weeks ago, Jace exploded into the family group chat with an announcement. He needed a reset weekend in Lake Tahoe with his buddy Garrett, the guy whose dad owns half the strip malls in Clark County. Just 4 days, 3 nights at Harrah's. Mom and Dad already covered the flights and the suite. Before I could process it, Savannah jumped in. She was tagging along for content. Added a winking emoji. Don't stress, big bro. I'm riding with Garrett. 0 cost to the family fund. Mom sent a laughing emoji. Then added, if anything goes sideways, Nolan will fix it. He always does. Nobody disagreed. Jace texted me privately that night. Bro, for once your wallet gets a break. Parents got me covered 100%. You're off the hook, lol. I typed back cool and left him on red. They flew out Thursday morning. The posts started hitting my phone right away. Savannah's video panning across the inside of a Gulf Stream. Private jet, check-in at Harrah's, 2-bedroom suite overlooking the lake, designer outfits with tags still attached, Jace throwing $100 chips at a craps table like confetti. Mom called Thursday night giddy. Your brother is finally relaxing, Nolan. He worked so hard trying to find himself. Jace hadn't held a steady job longer than 4 months in his life. By Saturday, the post had ramped up. Private room at Harrah's, professional dealers, stacks of chips so high they needed trays. The kind of room that requires a 6-figure credit line just to get through the door. Jace filmed himself sliding $500 chips across the felt like it was nothing. Caption, this is what winners look like. Meanwhile, some people calculate bridge stress for $60,000 a year and think they made it. I started screenshotting everything. Created a folder on my phone. Savannah kept posting. That rose gold bracelet catching the light. I'd seen the price tag flash in an earlier story. $42,000. Then Jace filmed Savannah wearing it, panning to his chip stacks. Some people are born winners. Others are born to fund them. My phone buzzed. Jace, yo, can you Zelle me $800 real quick? Just want some extra cushion for the tables tonight. I stared at that message. Didn't respond. Another text from Jace an hour later. You've been hoarding that engineer's salary like some kind of dragon for what? So you can die alone in Denver with a fat 401k. Then Mom sent a selfie. Her and Dad at home, smiling. Caption. So proud watching Jace live his best life. Some kids just have that winner energy. String of heart emojis. I muted the group chat. I muted. Told myself whatever mess they were making. This time I wasn't cleaning it up. That promise got tested at 1:47 a.m. My phone lit up with a text from Jace. Wire 5K right now. Not asking. Do your job. I stared at it. Didn't respond. Turned the phone face down. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Mom's name flashed again and again. I answered on the 5th ring. Put her on speaker. Didn't even say hello. Nolan, oh God, Nolan, he's dying. They said internal bleeding. They said his lung collapsed completely. He's on life support. They're saying he might not make it through the night without emergency surgery. Mom was hyperventilating between sobs. I could hear machines beeping in the background, dramatic and loud. I sat up in bed, turned on the lamp, grabbed a pen and notepad, started taking notes. Dad ripped the phone from her hand. His voice cracked, but I could hear the casino floor sounds behind him. Bells, music, announcements. Your brother is critical. Life-threatening injuries. Security beat him unconscious. 3 cracked ribs, punctured lung, internal bleeding. He's coding every few minutes. The doctors said without immediate surgery he won't survive till morning. He needs emergency rib plating, or his lung will collapse again, and he'll suffocate. 15 grand total. 5 for the casino debt, 10 for the hospital. He asked for you with his last conscious breath. I wrote it all down. The amount, the hospital name, 5 grand for the casino, 10 grand for the hospital. Mom grabbed the phone back, wailing. He's dying, Nolan. Dying. The monitors keep going flat. They had to shock him twice already. If you don't send the money in the next hour, you're killing your own brother. His blood will be on your hands forever. I sat up in the dark, room completely silent except for their hysteria on speaker. I knew ERs don't turn people away. They stabilize everyone regardless of payment. Why can't you two pay? Dead air. Then Mom broke into fresh sobs. We're completely broke, baby. We gave him everything we had for the trip and more. He was trying to win big to help the whole family. You've always been the strong one. This is what family does. I cut her off with 6 words I'd never said before. Call your perfect little princess. Then I ended the call. But I'm not a monster. I wasn't about to let my brother actually die over money. So I called the hospital directly. I'd been listed as his emergency contact for years because my parents always dumped paperwork on me. The nurse who answered didn't sound panicked. I'm calling about Jace, family member. Can you give me a status update? She put me on hold for maybe 30 seconds. He's stable. I can't go into details, but he's not in immediate danger. Stable. Not in immediate danger. No collapsed lung. No internal bleeding. No life support. No coding. My parents had made up a medical emergency to squeeze $15,000 out of me. I thanked the nurse, hung up, and yanked the charger cord out of the wall. Powered the phone all the way down. My heart was still hammering, but something inside me had gone completely still. No guilt, no second guessing, no tears. Just a cold, clean break. For a full minute, I lay there in the dark, waiting for the familiar wave of guilt to show up. It never came. I thought about the little boy who hid report cards because straight A's weren't as important as Jace's soccer practice. The teenager who worked 3 jobs so his brother could chase dreams he abandoned in a week. The man who delayed everything, home, family, vacations, because every dollar went south on I-15 to keep the golden child afloat. All of it ended with one phone call. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I felt free. I rolled over and slept harder than I had in years. The next morning, I woke up at 8:32. Sunlight pouring across the hardwood. I left the phone dead on the floor. Made French press coffee. Took a shower, did laundry, watered the plants. Normal Sunday things. I didn't plug the phone in until almost 10. The second it booted, chaos exploded. 61 missed calls. 147 texts. Voicemails stacked 3 screens deep. Mom's text started pleading and turned vicious within minutes. They had to resuscitate him again. He's brain dead now. The doctors said he's a vegetable. You did this. You murdered your own brother to save a few $1,000s, you greedy monster. I hope you die alone knowing you killed family. Dad sent one single message. He flatlined twice. They're keeping him alive on machines waiting for your money. You're watching him die. Savannah went nuclear. She posted a 30-second TikTok from the ER hallway. Face streaked with mascara. Strategic camera angle showing the trauma center sign. My 28-year-old brother is on life support right now, and my own brother is refusing to send $15,000. $15,000. He makes 6 figures, and he's letting him die on a ventilator. He's brain damaged from oxygen loss. All because Nolan is refusing to help his own blood. She tagged my full name. My company, Bridgepoint Engineering Solutions. My city, even my university. The video got shared in every family group chat. Cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, mom's church group, dad's old highway patrol buddies. Comments flooded in from people I recognized. You were always cold, Nolan. I always knew something was wrong with you. How can you do this to your own brother? Then came the photos uploaded every 30 minutes. Jace on a gurney, Shirt cut open, ribs wrapped in blood-stained gauze, face swollen purple, eyes rolling back, oxygen mask fogged with condensation. A screenshot of mom's declined Zelle attempts. 6 tries, all rejected for insufficient funds. Another video of Savannah holding his hand while he groaned, zooming in on the heart rate monitor. Caption: Hour 6 without the surgery. Organ failure starting. Big bro still won't answer. My phone started buzzing with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. I scrolled through it all while eating cereal, feeling absolutely nothing. The casino called first. Blocked Nevada number. I answered, "This is the credit cage at Harrah's Lake Tahoe. We have your brother in holding for an outstanding casino credit account. Your name and address appear on the application. Can we verify information? I don't know anything about that credit line. Check with his parents." The woman hesitated. "Sir, the address listed is 2847 Colfax Avenue, Denver, Colorado. Is that your current residence?" "My old address. From 3 years ago." My chest went cold. "That's my information, but I never signed anything. This is identity fraud." She paused. Keyboard clicking. "Understood, sir. We'll investigate and forward this to compliance. The account is frozen pending review. I need the name of your compliance officer and a case number." I hung up and pulled my credit report right away. Nothing. He'd used my info but hadn't actually opened anything in my name. Yet, that folder on my phone stopped being therapy. It became a case file. I opened a blank email and started typing to Harrah's general counsel. Subject line: Formal identity fraud report. Casino marker application. Attached every screenshot. The timeline of the trip. Evidence showing I was in Denver during the entire period. Bank statements showing zero financial connection to Jace. I CC'd my lawyer and hit send. The hospital billing department rang 10 minutes later. "Your brother is being treated and he's stable. The ER bill is $3,200. Anything beyond standard care would require authorization." "Wait, he's stable? Breathing on his own?" "Yes, sir. The additional procedure he's requesting is elective in his situation." "So he's not dying? Not on life support? No internal bleeding or collapsed lung?" She paused. "No, sir. Whoever told you that was mistaken. He's in fair condition. The pain management is working. He'll likely be discharged tomorrow." How much is he asking for the elective procedure?" "That would be an additional $12,000 for the surgical team and OR time." I sat back in my chair. So my parents called me at 2 a.m., claiming he was dying on life support. Needed $15,000 for emergency surgery, or he'd be dead by morning. And the reality is he has some broken ribs and wants an optional upgrade procedure. I'm not his insurance. I'm not paying for anything. He has parents. Call them. We have. They're here but unable to provide payment. Then he waits until he figures it out himself. Click. Mom tried FaceTime. Declined. Dad tried. Declined. Savannah tried from 3 different accounts. All declined. Then the group chat with extended family blew up. One aunt started a message thread. Subject: Nolan's cruelty. Screenshots of Savannah's videos. A long message about how I'd always been cold and distant. How I thought I was better than the family. I blocked every single one who piled on. Then I opened a new browser tab and went to the Colorado Attorney General's Consumer Protection Complaint portal. Filed a consumer fraud complaint. Attached hospital documentation showing stable condition versus their life support claims. The luxury trip photos. The timeline showing premeditated deception. Complaint submitted. Reference number logged. I forwarded copies of everything to the detective division. All the screenshots. The timeline. The evidence of the luxury trip. The hospital's real diagnosis versus the family's claims. Subject line: Jace. Case evidence for identity fraud charges. Additional evidence of fraudulent medical claims. The detective replied within an hour. Thanks for the cooperation. The fabricated medical emergency angle strengthens the fraud case significantly. The hospital social worker called next. Your brother was discharged this morning with standard rib fracture care instructions. Pain management and rest. He'll heal fine. Your parents picked him up and drove him to the police station for booking. Just wanted to confirm you're aware the medical emergency described to you was not accurate. I wiped oatmeal from the counter. I figured that out when I called back. Thanks for confirming. Click. Then Mom sent the longest voice note I'd ever received. 2 minutes of complete breakdown. I played it on speaker while washing dishes. He used your old address because you always bailed him out before, and he thought you'd do it again. He's your baby brother, Nolan. The detective told us this could be 5 to 10 years if he's convicted on both charges. They have him in an orange jumpsuit. We're sitting in a room that smells like vomit while church members send us money because his own brother won't lift a finger. You lied to us your whole life about caring. You never loved this family. You just wanted control. Well, congratulations. You broke us, destroyed your brother's life, ruined your parents' retirement. All because you're a selfish, cold-hearted snake who only cares about himself. I deleted it, rinsed the bowl, started a load of laundry. By 11:30, the casino compliance officer called. We've reviewed your fraud report and the police documentation. The application was definitely submitted using your information without authorization. We're cooperating fully with law enforcement. You have zero liability. Thank you. I'd like written confirmation of that. Absolutely. I'll email it within the hour. And I assume you'll be pursuing charges? We're coordinating with the DA's office. This type of fraud carries serious consequences. I hung up feeling lighter. The bail bondsman called 5 minutes later. 10% non-refundable. 800 cash. We can have him out in 2 hours. Call his parents. They're there. No collateral available from them. I hung up. Savannah's GoFundMe had climbed past 23,000. All donations from people in our circle, family, church, Dad's old work buddies. I saved them all to the evidence folder. I refreshed my work email. 47 new messages. Subject lines from people who knew my family. Former neighbors. Family friends. Disgrace. Hope you're proud. We know what you did to your brother. My boss had forwarded one with a question mark. I didn't panic. I'd been documenting everything for a reason. Composed an email to my boss and HR. Subject, RE. Weekend social media activity. Attaching context for the social media campaign targeting me. My estranged family is fundraising under false pretenses after a trip to Lake Tahoe. Documented evidence attached, showing luxury spending. They made up a medical emergency, claiming life support, internal bleeding, and brain death when hospital records show stable condition with minor rib fractures. Hospital documentation attached. They've committed identity fraud using my information, which I've reported to law enforcement in both Colorado and Nevada. Case numbers below. The GoFundMe contradicts both their social media posts and the actual medical diagnosis. I've filed police reports for doxing and online harassment, contacted GoFundMe's fraud department, and am cooperating with the DA's office. All personal information shared was without my knowledge or consent. Please let me know if you need additional documentation. I'll be in the office tomorrow as planned. Sent. My boss replied in 4 minutes. Thanks for the heads up. Let us know if we need to involve security. Then I locked down my credit with all 3 bureaus. Froze everything. At 6 p.m., I got an email from GoFundMe. After review of submitted evidence and complaints, we have temporarily paused this campaign and frozen all funds pending investigation. Medical claims made in fundraiser description contradict provided hospital documentation. Donors will be notified within 5 to 7 business days regarding refund eligibility. I forwarded that to the detective handling Jace's case with a simple note. Additional evidence of fraudulent conduct including fabrication of medical emergency. I cooked salmon that night, streamed a movie, went to bed with every notification silenced. For the first time in 32 years, nobody on earth could touch me. Monday afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown Nevada number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Nolan? Dad's voice was raw, like he'd been chain-smoking since dawn. He didn't waste time on greetings. Jace has been in trouble for 3 years straight, not just weekends. Every week. Online at first, then driving to every casino within 200 miles. He's into bookies, loan apps, casino credit lines. 85,000 total before this trip. He started coughing hard. First time he came clean was 18 months ago. Owed 30 grand. Your mom and I took out a reverse mortgage on the house to cover it. Told ourselves it was one time. He swore he'd stop. Another cough. I could hear airport announcements in the background. 4 months ago, it happened again. 55,000. We refinanced again. Maxed everything. Bank sent the final foreclosure warning last week. 60 days to pay or the house is gone. We thought one last big win in Tahoe would fix everything. That's why we gave him 3 grand. He said he had a system. He paused, breathing heavy. He lost it all in 6 hours. Started opening casino credit lines with fake IDs. When it all crashed, your mother panicked and lied about him dying because we thought if you believed it was life or death, you'd finally pay without asking questions like you used to. I set the glass down. And you're telling me this why? Because we're out of moves, Nolan. The house, the cars, mom's jewelry, everything's gone or pledged. The only asset left is you. If you take out a personal loan for 100 grand, we can pay the bank. Get Jason to real rehab. Keep a roof over our heads. One final time. He's in a cell promising he'll change. He said he's sorry for what he said to you. I walked to the balcony, slid the door open, let the cold air hit my face. So let me make sure I understand. You mortgaged the family home twice to cover his debts. You knew he was sick, and you still handed him cash for one last score. When it crashed, you made up a medical emergency and lied about him dying to manipulate me. And now that it's all collapsed, you want me to borrow six figures to save you from consequences you created? Dad's voice cracked. He's our baby boy, Nolan. You've always been strong, independent. You never needed us like he does. This is what big brothers do. What family does. I stared out at the Denver skyline. Mountains sharp against blue. That's the problem, Dad. You've always treated him like the only one who matters. You just admitted you lied about him dying to manipulate me. After everything, after $127,000. You still thought lying was the move. Silence stretched so long, I thought the call dropped. Then he whispered, "Please, Nolan. I'm begging. I'm on my knees in this airport. Your mother is destroyed. Jace is destroyed. Don't do this. Don't be this person." I closed my eyes. Funny. Jace already told me how this ends. Hope you die alone. Consider this me respecting his vision. Dead silence. Then I continued. You taught me my whole life that family comes first, that the oldest son had to carry everyone. You made that rule. I lived by it for 32 years. And the second I stop, I'm the villain. The second I ask for truth, I'm heartless. Well, congratulations, Dad. You created exactly what you needed. An ATM that finally shut down. He was crying. Ugly, choking sobs. I'm sorry. I know we failed you. I know we put him first every time. I know we lied. But if you don't help, we lose everything. Jace goes to prison. Your mom and I are homeless at 60. Is that really what you want? I watched a hawk circling high above the city. No, that's not what I want. But it's what you built. And I'm done paying for it. Nolan, I'm not a bank, Dad. I'm your son. And you lost the right to ask me for anything the day you lied about him dying to manipulate money out of me. After everything else. That was the line. He was openly weeping now. You're really going to let your brother rot in jail? Let your parents lose everything? He's 28. He made adult choices. Let him face adult consequences. And you made your choices too. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call. Blocked the number right away. Opened my laptop. Ran a full credit report on myself and my parents. The reverse mortgages were there in black and white. Both in Mom and Dad's names only. Jace wasn't even on the deed. My name appeared nowhere. Legally, the house wasn't my problem. Never had been. That was the last time I ever spoke to my father. Foreclosure hit fast. The county posted the notice within days. The house on Coral Shelf Street. Padlocked. A neighbor sent me a photo of the yellow eviction sticker. Mom and Dad had 30 minutes to grab what they could. 23 years of equity drained for Jace's problems. Gone. The DA offered Jace a plea deal. First offense, and the casino didn't want a trial circus. Attempted fraud, misdemeanor assault. 18 months suspended. Mandatory 90-day rehab program. 5 years probation. Restitution to the casino and to me. He took it. Once GoFundMe froze the campaign and sent refund notifications, the family turned on Savannah. Same relatives who donated now accusing her of scamming them. She posted one statement blaming Mom and Dad, then deleted all her accounts. I changed my number, gave the new one to 8 people, blocked every relative, froze my credit. Then I closed the laptop, turned off my phone, and went back to what they never paid for. My life. Update. So I went to see Jace yesterday. Not because I'm soft, not because guilt finally caught up with me. I went because his public defender called my work line, still don't know how he got it, and said Jace put me down as the only approved visitor for a supervised session. The counselor wanted a family reconciliation attempt, documented for his file before his formal sentencing hearing. I told the PD I wasn't interested in reconciliation. He said, "You don't have to reconcile. Just show up so we can say we tried." I figured I'd rather hear whatever nonsense he was planning face-to-face than get guilt texted into compassion 6 months from now. The county facility smelled like disinfectant and fear. No phone, no belt, empty your pockets into a locker. They walked me into a small room with a table bolted to the floor and a counselor sitting in the corner with a clipboard like some kind of referee. Jace looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Orange jumpsuit hanging off him. Hair greasy, eyes bloodshot. The kind of look that happens when fluorescent lights don't have an off switch and your cellmate snores like a lawnmower. He didn't try to hug me, didn't smile, just sat down across from me and slid a printed document across the table. "I signed this already," he said, voice flat. "It's a statement for the DA. Everything I did. The fake ID. The credit line attempt using your old address. Savannah coaching me on what to say to make you look worse. All of it. I picked it up. 3 pages. Notarized. Every detail laid out in bureaucratic language. He kept going. I didn't treat you like a brother. I treated you like a bank with a guilt button I could press whenever I needed a withdrawal. And when you finally stopped paying, I tried to humiliate you online because I thought if enough people called you a monster, you'd cave like you always did. No tears. No dramatic pauses. Just a guy who'd been sitting in a cell long enough to realize he wasn't the main character. I'm agreeing to full restitution, whatever the court says, and I'm signing over access to every account, every login, every piece of paper I used. You want to see the loan apps? The credit lines? The fake documents? It's all yours. I leaned back in the chair, watched him, waiting for the angle. Why now? He exhaled slow. Because Savannah came to visit me last week, and that's when he showed me the screenshots. Jace pulled a folder from under his statement. His public defender called it the discovery packet. Jace requested one condition when scheduling this session. I could walk out with it. Text threads between him and Savannah going back several months. Before Tahoe. Before the credit line. Before any of it. Savannah had planned the entire campaign like a content strategy. Message from early in the planning. If we push the family emergency angle hard enough, Nolan will crack. He always does. But we need medical language. Life support hits harder than broken ribs. Your people donate to dying, not injured. Another message a week later. When it goes public, tag his employer. Make it about his character, not the money. If his coworkers see it, he'll pay just to make it stop. A draft post from 2 weeks before the Tahoe trip, outlining the exact TikTok she'd eventually film. Shot list, caption templates, hashtag strategy. She'd even written out which family members to send it to first for maximum spread. A few days before they flew out, Dad said Nolan's info is still in the family files from when he was listed as your emergency contact years ago. If you use his old Denver address on the application, the casino won't flag it right away. By the time he finds out, we'll have the money and he'll pay to avoid fraud charges like always. I stared at the printouts. She knew you were going to use my information? Jace nodded. She didn't just know. She helped me fill out the application, told me exactly what to write, what documents to fake. She said you'd been hoarding money for years, and it was time someone made you pay it forward. Her words. Another screenshot. This one from the night of the ER. Savannah to Jace. Mom's calling him now with the dying story. I'm going live in 10 minutes. Make sure your face looks worse than it is. Groan when I zoom in. I need this to look desperate. I felt something cold drop in my chest. So the whole thing, the fundraiser, the medical emergency, the doxing campaign, that was her? She ran point, Jace said. Mom and Dad knew about the credit line plan, but they thought it was just me being stupid. They didn't know Savannah was setting up the social media angle as a backup. When everything crashed, she pivoted to the GoFundMe within hours. Already had the photos ready, already had the message drafted. It wasn't panic, it was scheduled. The counselor in the corner was writing like crazy. I set the pages down. And you're telling me this why? Jace's jaw tightened. Because when the DA showed me screenshots of her messages coaching me to blame you for the fraud attempt, I realized I was her test case. She's been building a platform around family accountability content, posts about cutting off toxic siblings, videos about financial abuse. You were supposed to be her villain origin story, the heartless engineer brother who let his family suffer. He leaned forward. She came here last week and told me if I kept my mouth shut and took the full fall, she'd use her platform to fundraise for my future once I got out. Said she could turn me into a redemption arc if I played along. And if I didn't, she'd make sure every single person in our family knew I snitched on her. He pulled out one more page. A drafted statement in Savannah's handwriting. Not typed, handwritten. She even wrote this for me to sign if the fraud charges stuck. A statement claiming you pressured me into using your information, that you knew about the credit line and approved it but backed out when it went bad to make me look like the villain. She was setting up a legal defense that made you the co-conspirator. I stared at the page. My name in her handwriting. Details that would have been just believable enough to create reasonable doubt. She wasn't just trying to ruin your reputation, Jace said. She was building an exit strategy that put you in the crosshairs if I went down. I let that sit for a second. So you're flipping on her to save yourself? Yeah, he said. No hesitation. I'm drowning, Nolan. And she's the one who tied the weights to my ankles. I'm not going down alone for someone who turned my life into content strategy. He slid another document across the table. An affidavit. Signed by him. Naming Savannah as a co-conspirator in the fraud attempt and the doxing campaign. Time-stamped messages. Screenshots with metadata. A recorded call where she walked him through the credit application step by step. The DA said if I cooperate and provide evidence on her involvement, they'll consider reducing my sentence. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking if you want to nail the person who actually orchestrated this. I picked up the affidavit. Read it twice. The counselor cleared her throat. We have 15 minutes left in the session. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Jace looked at me. I'm signing up for the extended rehab program. 90 days inpatient, 6 months outpatient. But it costs $8,000 the state won't cover. I'm asking you to pay the facility directly, not me. I don't want cash. I want structure. He slid another document across the table. A promissory note template, blank. I'll sign whatever you want. Legally binding repayment plan. Wage garnishment agreement once I'm employed. The DA said if you're willing to support my treatment, it shows stability and could influence sentencing. But I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for terms. There it was. The ask. I set the papers down. So, let me get this straight. You're offering me evidence to destroy Savannah's life in exchange for me funding your rehab. That's the trade. Jace didn't flinch. If you don't help, I go back to county after sentencing, and I'll be out in 6 months with no support system and the same addiction that got me here. If you do help, I get clean and Savannah gets what she deserves. Your call. I studied his face, looking for the con, the angle. I couldn't tell if he regretted what he did, or if he just regretted that it didn't work. I stood up, looked at the stack of evidence on the table. I'll think about it. He nodded, didn't argue, didn't beg. Fair enough. I walked out of that facility with the folder under my arm and sat in my truck for 20 minutes staring at the steering wheel. 3 paths in front of me. Option A, pay the rehab directly. Cooperate with the DA against Savannah. Get her off the internet and Jace into treatment. Become the fixer one more time. Option B, don't pay. Still cooperate against Savannah using his evidence. Let him face consequences while taking down the person who orchestrated it. Option C, pay the rehab, but refuse to help prosecute Savannah. Let them both face their own messes without turning myself into their weapon. If I pay, I'm buying a seat at the table I escaped. If I don't, I'm letting the wrong person win. If I halfway commit, I'm playing a game I don't fully understand yet. He sounded real. The proof he showed me was worse than anything I expected, but he also only got honest after the handcuffs came out. So I'm asking, do you throw a rope to someone who lit the fire if he's also handing you the matchbook that proves who planned the whole thing? I pulled out my phone, called the rehab facility, and asked what direct payment options exist. Left my number. Then I forwarded the affidavit to my lawyer with no explanation. I told Jace I'd answer in 48 hours. Haven't decided yet. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 4. My parents told me she's gonna die anyway, so why waste money? When my daughter needed life-saving surgery, they gave $150,000 to my brother instead, and now I own their house, their debts, and their ruined reputation. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the type to post here, but the last year has been something else. Between my daughter's diagnosis, my family's betrayal, and the way things spiraled, I ended up seeing a side of people I wish I hadn't. I've been carrying this story around for a while, and I figured if anyone would understand, it'd be you guys. So buckle up because this one starts with desperation and ends with something I never expected. You know how people always say, family will be there when it matters most? Yeah, whoever came up with that line never met my family. 2 months ago, I sat in a freezing doctor's office while he explained, with that rehearsed calm tone doctors use when they know they're detonating your life, that my 7-year-old daughter had a tumor pressing against her brain. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't try soft words. He looked me dead in the eye and said, she needs surgery within 2 months. Without it, she won't make it. I didn't flinch. I didn't break down. I asked the only question that mattered, how much? 70,000, he said, flipping through charts like he was reading me grocery prices. 70 grand. 2 months. That was the timer he just slapped on my daughter's life. Now here's the thing about me. I don't panic, ever. I don't do meltdowns. My brain doesn't go into despair mode. It goes into strategy. Options, calculations. What's the fastest way to close this gap? Insurance? Already tried. Denied. Bank loan? 3 banks, 3 rejections. Side hustles? I was already working nights on top of my day job. The math wasn't adding up no matter how many late nights I crunched the numbers. But one thing was non-negotiable. She was getting that surgery. Period. Which meant, like it or not, I had to look at my last option. My parents. Now quick background. My parents aren't exactly the kind and selfless type. They live in this delusional little bubble where they think they're the Kennedys of the neighborhood. My dad walks around quoting business advice he clearly pulled off Facebook Reels, and my mom backs him up like he's the second coming of Warren Buffett. They've spent their whole lives worshiping my older brother, the golden child, while treating me like background noise. But this wasn't about me. This was about their granddaughter. And I figured, even entitled people can't ignore life or death, right? That night, I drove over to their house. I didn't grovel. I didn't cry. I walked in, looked my dad straight in the eye, and said, I need $70,000. It's for her surgery. She's got 2 months. I'll pay it back every dime. My mom gave me that fake sympathetic face you give someone when you're not actually listening. My dad didn't even lower his newspaper at first. We'll think about it, he finally muttered, like I'd just asked him to co-sign a car loan. I stared at him. Think about it? It's her life. He shrugged. Times are tough. Money doesn't grow on trees. That was it. Conversation over. They went back to their cozy evening like nothing had been said. I didn't argue. I didn't slam the door. I just walked out, jaw locked, because here's something I live by. When people show you who they are, you don't waste time trying to change them. You take notes, you remember, and you use it later. Driving home, the weight of everything hit me. Not panic, not despair, more like an iron bar pressing on my chest. My parents had basically told me my daughter's life wasn't worth their money. And the twisted part? A small part of me still hoped they'd call in a day or two and say, we've thought about it, we'll help. Hope is dangerous. When I walked into our small apartment that night, my daughter was awake in bed, hugging her old stuffed panda. She looked up at me with those big eyes that could slice through armor. Daddy? She whispered. Yeah, kiddo? I sat down on the edge of her bed. Am I gonna die like mommy? That question hit harder than anything the doctor said. It's a big question for a small kid. I leaned in, smoothed her hair back, and said gently, no, honey. You're going to grow up and become a beautiful young girl. She smiled a little, still clutching her panda. Promise? I nodded once. I promise. Daddy always keeps his promises. She believed me. And in that moment, that belief wasn't just comfort. It was fuel. When she drifted off, I sat there for a while, staring at the ceiling. My parents' words kept replaying in my head. We'll think about it. Think about it? Number. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for them. If I had to crawl through broken glass to make that $70,000, I'd do it. But the crack of hope I left open, the thought that maybe family would step up, was about to burn me worse than anything. Because while I was breaking myself to save my daughter, my family was already plotting something else entirely. Something that would make me realize just how delusional, entitled, and ignorant they really were. And when I found out, it didn't just kill whatever trust I had left. It lit the fuse for everything that came after. The setup was almost laughable. A week after my parents brushed me off, they called, voices sugary sweet, inviting me to dinner. Important news, they said. Big family update. I should have known better, but that flicker of hope is hard to kill. Maybe they had come to their senses. Maybe this was their way of saying, we'll cover the surgery. So I went. When I walked into their house, it was staged like some kind of event. Candles, a spread of store-bought food, wine bottles open, my dad in a button-down, my mom smiling like she was hosting royalty, and my brother, already smirking, swirling a glass like he was celebrating. There he is, my brother said, loud, fake cheerful. Perfect timing. I sat down, kept my face neutral. My mom raised her glass. We wanted to share wonderful news. Your father and I decided to make a major investment. My brother stood, puffing his chest. Mom and Dad gave me $150,000 to launch my business project. I'm officially funded. They all clinked glasses, laughing and cheering like they'd just announced a Nobel Prize. I stared at them, then said flatly, wait, you gave him $150,000? My dad smirked. That's right. He has vision. He's going to build something real. I leaned forward, voice low and sharp. You told me last week you'd think about helping with my daughter's surgery. She needs 70. 70. That's not even half of what you just threw at him. Did you even consider it? The table went quiet for half a second. My brother broke it with a chuckle. Come on, man. You can't compare a medical bill to an actual investment. One is an asset. The other is just an expense. My mom nodded, sipping her wine. Sweetheart, we sympathize with you. We really do. But you have to be realistic. She's sick. And even if you spend that money, who's to say it even works? Why waste it when we can help your brother create something that lasts? I froze. My jaw tightened. Are you saying my daughter isn't worth it? My dad finally set his glass down, looking straight at me. She's going to die anyway, son. The doctors just won't admit it. Better to invest in something with actual returns than throw money at a lost cause. That was it. The mask came off. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so insane I needed to release it somehow. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. You know, I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, you had a shred of decency left. Instead, you're celebrating funding your golden boy while writing off your granddaughter as bad business. You're not investors. You're clowns. My brother's smug grin cracked. Don't talk to them like that. They made the smart choice. Smart choice? I snapped back. You're 35 and still living off their wallet. You've never built a damn thing in your life. You think this makes you some kind of mogul? All it makes you is a parasite with a bigger allowance. My mom gasped like I'd cursed in church. My dad's face went red. Watch your mouth. You're ungrateful. You come here with your hand out, and when we choose to support someone who actually deserves it, you insult us? I leaned across the table, calm but razor sharp. Deserves it? My daughter's fighting for her life, and you call that undeserving? You're delusional. You're so obsessed with playing kingmakers that you can't even see the rot you've raised in him, or the rot in yourselves. For the first time, they didn't have a comeback. My brother muttered, "You're just jealous," under his breath. But even he didn't sound convinced. I stood, tossed my napkin onto the table. Enjoy your little toast. Just remember, when she pulls through, and when I rebuild from this, you're going to wish you hadn't said half the things you just said, because I don't forget. I turned toward the door. My mom called after me, voice shaking, "You'll regret disrespecting this family." I looked over my shoulder. No, you'll regret underestimating me. Then I left. When I got home, my daughter was still awake, sitting up in bed with her panda. "How was dinner?" she asked softly. I sat beside her, kissed her forehead. It was exactly what I needed. "Did they help?" she whispered. I shook my head. "No, but don't worry. Daddy's got this." Her little hand squeezed mine. "Promise?" "I promise," I said. And unlike them, when I make a promise, I keep it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at bills, replaying my dad's words over and over. She's going to die anyway. That was the moment the fuse didn't just light. It roared. I wasn't just saving my daughter anymore. I was preparing to burn down the empire of ignorance and entitlement they'd built around themselves. And when I was done, they'd wish they'd treated 70 grand like the best investment they ever could have made. But at that point, I was running out of time. The doctor's deadline wasn't going to wait for my family to grow a conscience. My daughter needed surgery, and I had to make a move fast. The only real asset I had left was my stake in a small construction supply business I'd built with two friends years back. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I'd poured sweat into it. Long hours, weekends, late-night runs to meet clients. That business was my safety net, my long-term play for my daughter's future. And now I had to gut it. I went to my partners and told them I needed out. One of them, Greg, tried to talk me down. "Man, don't do this. We'll figure out another way." I shook my head. There is no other way. She needs the surgery. The doctors aren't bluffing. Greg looked sick but nodded. The other guy, Todd, was already running numbers in his head. "All right, but you're going to take a hit. Fast sales don't pay fair." That was an understatement. Here's where my dad slithered back in. He helpfully said he knew a guy who specialized in fast cash deals. He's a friend of the family. Old school. Handles things quietly. You'll get paid in a week. I should have smelled it. Hell, I did smell it. But desperation has a way of muting your instincts. I couldn't risk weeks of back and forth with brokers. Every day was another day my daughter's tumor pressed deeper into her brain. So I agreed. Selling real estate takes weeks, and I didn't have that. I offloaded the business stake for fast cash, then listed the apartment to sell after the surgery. The deal moved lightning fast, which should have been another red flag. Paperwork shoved in front of me. Numbers way below market value. My share of the business was worth at least $200,000. I walked away with 87. It was a gut punch, but it was cash in hand. Enough to pay the surgeon, enough to get her into that operating room. That night, while my daughter clutched her panda and asked if she could bring it with her to the hospital, I told her yes, and I signed the final documents. The surgery day was hell. 8 hours pacing the sterile hospital hallway. Every beep of the monitors behind those doors driving nails into my brain. When the doctor finally came out and said, "We got it," I exhaled for the first time in weeks. She survived. That was all that mattered. But victory felt tainted, because while I should have been celebrating, I kept replaying the sale in my head. The buyer had barely looked me in the eye. The paperwork was sloppy, and my dad had pushed him too hard, like he wanted the deal done yesterday. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the sale documents out of the folder and ran the buyer's name through public records. What I found made my stomach twist. The buyer wasn't some random businessman. He was a family friend I vaguely remembered from cookouts years back. One of those guys always bragging about cash deals and shady property flips. And here's the kicker. I stumbled across a transaction filed right after the sale. A consulting fee listed as $20,000. The recipient? My brother. My pulse spiked. I dug further and found another transfer. 10 grand. Straight into my parents' joint account. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just a lowball deal, it was a setup. My dad had funneled me straight into a shark's mouth, and my own family had taken a finder's fee while I was drowning. They didn't just refuse to help me, they profited off my desperation. I sat there staring at the papers, hands shaking, but not from sadness, from anger. White-hot, calculated anger. They celebrated my brother's business project with $150,000, then lined their pockets with 30 more off my back. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on a hospital cot, living on vending machine coffee, praying my daughter would wake up and smile at me again. That was the day something inside me snapped. Not my resolve, my naivety. Up until then, some part of me still thought, they're family. Deep down, they'll do the right thing. But now I saw the truth. They weren't blind. They weren't mistaken. They were predators. Entitled, greedy, delusional predators. And predators don't change. I stopped seeing them as my parents and brother. From that day forward, they were just targets. The law wasn't going to save me. Contracts had signatures. Finder's fees weren't illegal. No lawyer was going to touch this without draining me dry. So I started teaching myself. Late nights after my daughter fell asleep, I opened my laptop and dug through public records. Mortgages, liens, lawsuits, property histories. I devoured it all. I signed up for free courses, read forums, learned how money actually moved when people thought no one was watching. I wasn't going to cry about losing my business. I wasn't going to waste time begging them to make it right. I was going to learn their weaknesses. Every debt, every fake investment, every overextended dollar. And when I was ready, I was going to turn every single one of those weaknesses against them. The surgery saved my daughter's life. The scam woke me up. And together, those two things lit the fire that was going to burn their empire to the ground. Up until then, my plan was just survival. Work myself into the ground, scrape together every dollar, maybe claw back some kind of stability for my daughter. It wasn't glamorous, but it was all I had. Then the letter came. It looked ordinary. Plain envelope, return address from a law office I didn't recognize. I opened it at the kitchen table while my daughter was upstairs coloring, and my whole world shifted in 5 minutes flat. It was from my late wife's father's attorney. The old man had passed months earlier. He wasn't flashy about anything. He never had sons, and his daughter, my wife, was everything to him. When she died, he never really recovered. But what he left behind, I wasn't ready for. The lawyer explained his estate was finalized. Since my wife was his only child, everything went to me and my daughter. First, the house. Paid off. 2 stories, decent yard, solid neighborhood. And then, the savings. A personal account with a balance of $850,000. I had to read the number 3 times. 850 grand. Sitting in an account that was now mine. Tucked inside the folder was a note in his handwriting. It was shaky, but the message was steady. I know life without my daughter has been heavy. I can't take that pain away. Take that. But I can give you the tools to protect my granddaughter. Take the house. Take the savings. Use them to build her future. This is my last gift. For a second, my chest locked up. Not out of weakness, out of pure contrast. My own parents had called my daughter a waste of money, but here was her grandfather, making sure she'd never be without a home or stability again. My daughter wandered down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, what's that?" I swallowed, folded the note, and smiled. "It's from Grandpa. He gave us a new home." Her eyes widened. "A real house? With stairs?" "Yeah, kiddo," I said. "With stairs." We moved in within a week. The place smelled like old wood and dust, but it was solid. She picked the room with the biggest window and plastered her crayon drawings on the wall. She put her panda on the windowsill like a guard. I set up my stuff in the spare room. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel like it was crushing us. That house wasn't just walls. It was proof. Proof that somebody at least cared about her future. And I swore I'd never sell it, never risk it. This was hers. Always. But the savings? That was different. That wasn't just money. That was a war chest. Right after the surgery, I listed my old apartment. It closed a few weeks later, and I added that cash to the pile. Suddenly, I was sitting on close to $900,000. The kind of capital that changes everything. And I knew exactly where to aim it. I didn't run out and blow it on cars or vacations. I treated it like ammunition. Every dollar was a bullet, and I was loading a gun with their names on it. At night, after my daughter went to bed upstairs, I turned the living room into a war room. Laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. I dug into public records, mortgage filings, tax liens. It turns out, once you know where to look, people's financial skeletons are just lying there in plain sight. And my family? They had closets full of them. My parents weren't sitting on wealth. They were drowning in loans. A second mortgage they were already laid on. Credit lines pushed to the max. Bills stacking up faster than they could hide them. My brother's business project? Already falling apart. Contractors chasing him for unpaid invoices. Suppliers threatening lawsuits. His little empire was a house of cards. All that bragging, all those toasts, built on nothing. So I went hunting. I reached out to small lending firms, the kind that buy and sell distressed assets. I introduced myself as an investor interested in bad debt portfolios. They were more than happy to show me files of delinquent accounts. And there it was. My parents, my brother, missed payments, overdue balances, foreclosure notices waiting to happen. I started buying, quietly, piece by piece. First, I picked up their second mortgage. Then later, I grabbed the senior note when the bank decided to unload it at a discount. By then, they were already months behind. To them, it looked like the same nameless creditors breathing down their necks. What they didn't know was that those letters, those threats, those penalties, they were mine. I didn't rush it. I wasn't desperate anymore. I had time. I had patience. I could sit in my new house, my daughter safe upstairs, while their rope got tighter every month. They had called my daughter a lost cause. Now I held their cause, their house, their debts, their golden boy's failing empire. Her grandfather's last act of love had given me everything I needed to dismantle them, and I was going to use every last cent. Meanwhile, my brother was busy playing king. If you believed his social media feed, he was already a millionaire. New car every other week, dinners at restaurants where the check probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, rooftop selfies with cheap champagne labeled as Dom. My parents reposted everything, acting like he was the second coming of Rockefeller. In reality, I knew exactly what it was. Smoke and mirrors. The new car was a lease with payments already overdue. His so-called office was a glorified sublet, with an eviction notice pinned to the door when you looked closely. The business project he bragged about was a bonfire of cash, with contractors filing complaints because he wasn't paying his bills. I had receipts. Literal ones. I pulled property filings, credit histories, and even some lawsuit records. Every screenshot, every document, every post he made went into a folder I kept neatly labeled. A digital guillotine waiting to drop. But the beauty of it? Nobody else knew. To the outside world, he was the prodigy, the genius, the one who made it. My parents clung to that image like it was oxygen. At family get-togethers, they'd beam with pride. Our son is building something incredible, my mom would say. You should see his investors, my dad would add. Then they'd glance at me with that same condescending smirk they'd worn my entire life. If only you had your brother's vision. I'd just smile back. Because what they didn't realize was that I did have vision. Mine just didn't involve selfies and rented suits. Mine involved legal notices with their names on them. It didn't stop with my parents. My brother started running his mouth to the rest of the family. Cousins, uncles, even neighbors got dragged into his circus. He convinced them to invest in his project, promising sky-high returns. Ground floor opportunity, he called it. Family wealth for generations. Some of them bought in. I heard about one uncle pulling out part of his retirement fund. A cousin wired him $20,000. Even the old neighbor across the street chipped in a small stake. And why wouldn't they? My parents vouched for him, swore he was a genius. They painted me as the bitter one, the failure, the guy who never understood real business. I didn't stop them. Not yet. If they wanted to dump their money into my brother's black hole, fine. Every dollar he swallowed was just more weight dragging him under. Behind the curtain, it was already falling apart. I could see it in the filings. Payment notices turning red. Interest charges snowballing. Creditors marking his accounts as delinquent. I had copies of every one of them. And yet, he doubled down. That's the thing about people like him. When the foundation cracks, they paint the walls instead of fixing the floor. He started posting motivational quotes about trusting the process and temporary setbacks. But he bragged about meetings that never happened and clients that didn't exist. I sat in my war room, her grandfather's house, now my fortress, with my laptop open, flipping between his Instagram feed and the foreclosure notices with his name on them. The contrast was laughable. One night, while my daughter was asleep upstairs, I spread everything out across the table. Bank statements, screenshots, debt files, legal filings. It looked like the blueprint of a collapse, and it was all heading toward one inevitable outcome: ruin. The best part? I didn't even need to touch it. His arrogance was doing all the heavy lifting for me. But I wasn't idle. I was careful, strategic. I documented everything. Screenshots of every flashy post, paired with proof of every unpaid bill. Side by side, they told a story no one could deny once I released it. My parents, meanwhile, acted like royalty. They bragged to neighbors, hosted dinners where they paraded him around, toasted his success. They looked down on me as if I was invisible, and I let them, because the longer they believed their fantasy, the harder the crash would be. Every insult they threw, every time they told me I should learn from my brother, every sideways glance at family events was fuel. They even started leaving voicemails calling me ungrateful, promising they'd ruin me if I kept exposing their prodigy. I saved every single one. I didn't argue, I didn't fight, I just smiled, nodded, and quietly tightened the leash around their necks. Because here's the truth: revenge doesn't always look like screaming or punching walls. Sometimes it looks like silence, like patience, like sitting in the dark with a folder full of receipts while your enemies toast their own downfall. The cracks were spreading. Investors were whispering. Suppliers were threatening lawsuits. Payments were bouncing. My brother was scrambling to cover holes he couldn't fill, while still posting online like everything was perfect. And me? I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and waited. The predator doesn't need to chase. The prey always trips over its own feet. By the time I was done, the whole neighborhood would know the truth. And my family, the ones who called my daughter a lost cause, would be standing in the rubble of the empire they thought they built. I closed the folder that night, smiled to myself, and whispered, "Almost time." The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were fractures splitting wide open. My brother's so-called empire was starting to eat itself alive. First came the lawsuits. Contractors filed complaints for unpaid work. Suppliers demanded invoices cleared. Investors who had been promised guaranteed returns were suddenly showing up with lawyers. Then came the silence. His social media, once a non-stop feed of rented cars, rooftop dinners, and motivational quotes, went dark. No more champagne selfies, no more hashtags about the grind, just silence. People noticed. Neighbors who had once nodded proudly when my parents boasted now whispered in hushed tones. Cousins who had poured their savings into his vision started making angry calls. My phone lit up more than once from people asking if I'd heard anything. I didn't answer. Not yet. The real fireworks came when the first official foreclosure notices hit my parents' mailbox. That second mortgage they'd been juggling? The one I quietly bought up? Yeah. My lawyer sent the letter. Pay or lose the house. They didn't pay. They couldn't. By then, I had everything lined up. Screenshots of my brother's lavish posts, copies of unpaid bills, court filings with his name on them, bank notices, the finder's fee scam from when they'd gutted me on my business sale. It was a neat little portfolio. Every lie paired with the truth, every brag next to the bill he ignored. I didn't blast it all at once. I leaked it slowly, methodically. First, I dropped screenshots in the family WhatsApp group, my brother posting about buying a car side by side with documents showing the lease default. Silence followed. Then I sent copies of lawsuits directly to the cousins who had invested. Thought you should know where your money went. I didn't even have to explain. The receipts spoke louder than I ever could. The explosion was nuclear. Relatives turned on my parents overnight. Neighbors who once clapped at their dinner toasts now crossed the street to avoid them. The golden boy was exposed for what he was, a parasite burning through other people's money. And my parents? They scrambled. The first call came from my mom. "Sweetheart, we need to talk. Your brother's had some setbacks." "Setbacks?" I said, leaning back in my chair. "You mean fraud? Lies? Unpaid debts?" She sniffled. "He just needs time. You've been doing well, haven't you? You could help him out." I laughed. "Why would I put my money into something failing? That's not an investment." The silence on her end was delicious. That was their line. Their exact words when I begged them for help with my daughter's surgery. Hearing it thrown back at them, it must have stung like acid. The next call was from my dad. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "Son, listen to me. We're family. Families help each other. We're about to lose everything." I smirked into the phone. Sounds familiar. Didn't you tell me family isn't about handouts? That real men sell what they have to survive? Guess you better find a buyer quick. His voice rose desperate now. Don't do this. Think of your brother. Think of us. I cut him off. You didn't think of my daughter when she was on an operating table with a tumor in her head. You thought of return on investment. And now you're just bad stock. Click. They didn't stop there. My brother showed up at my door 2 nights later. No car this time. No smug grin. Just bags under his eyes and desperation dripping off him. You set me up, he hissed. You sabotaged me. Everyone's turning on me because of you. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. No, they're turning on you because you're a fraud. All I did was hold up the mirror. He shoved a finger in my chest. You ruined me. I smirked. No, you ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it. He muttered something about lawyers and stormed off, but I could tell it was all bark. He didn't have a dime left to fight with. Once I held both liens, it was just a waiting game. Months of notices, filings, and trustee sale dates ticked by until the foreclosure clock ran out. Then it all moved forward like clockwork. Every missed payment was another nail in their coffin. And every notice had my fingerprints on it, even if they didn't realize it yet. But they were starting to suspect. My dad called again, voice lower this time. It's you, isn't it? You're behind this. I let the silence hang for a beat, then said, If I were, would you be surprised? He didn't answer. He just breathed heavy, then hung up. Words spread faster than I could have imagined. The same neighbors who once toasted with them were now gossiping at the grocery store about how the great investor family had lost it all. Extended family members cut contact completely. The golden boy wasn't golden anymore. He was just broke. And my parents? They were standing right beside him in the wreckage. The night before the final foreclosure judgment, my mom tried one last time. She came to the house, my house, the one my late wife's father left us, and knocked like a beggar. My daughter was upstairs, so I stepped outside. Her eyes were red, her voice cracking. Please, don't let them take the house. We raised you there. We gave you everything. I stared at her. You gave me nothing. You stole from me when my daughter needed you most. And now you want mercy? Tears rolled down her cheeks. We made mistakes, but this is our home. I pulled the foreclosure notice from my pocket, the one with my name listed as the creditor, and handed it to her. Not anymore. It's mine. She read it, and her face went pale. You? Yeah, I said coldly. I own your debt. I own your house. And tomorrow you'll be standing on the lawn while the neighbors watch. She sobbed. How could you do this to your own family? I leaned in, my voice low and calm. Family is supposed to protect each other. You called my daughter a waste of money. That's when you stopped being family. This is just business. I turned, walked inside, and closed the door. When the order finally hit after the sale, the foreclosure was official. The eviction date got set. My parents and brother finally knew the truth. The failure they mocked, the lost cause they dismissed, was the one holding their leash. And soon, they'd be standing on the curb, watching their empire collapse around them. After the sale wrapped up and the order posted, the eviction date finally landed. Clear skies that morning, the kind of day where the world dares you to pay attention, where the world feels fresh, sharp, like it's daring you to pay attention. I sat in my car across the street, coffee in hand, watching as the moving trucks pulled up to my parents' driveway. A sheriff's deputy nailed the official notice to the front door. Neighbors started trickling out one by one. Some pretended to check their mail. Others leaned against fences, phones in hand. Everyone knew what was happening. This wasn't just paperwork. This was a spectacle. By the time my parents' car rolled up, half the block was watching. They pulled in laughing, shopping bags on the back seat, my brother in the passenger seat like a king without a crown. The laughter died the second they saw their furniture stacked on the lawn. I'll never forget the look on my dad's face. First confusion, then denial, then raw panic as he stormed toward the front door and ripped the paper off. His hands froze when his eyes landed on the name of the creditor. My name. He staggered back like the paper had burned him. My mom dropped her bag, groceries spilling across the driveway. My brother's face twisted from shock to fury in seconds. You! He roared when he spotted me across the street. You did this! He lunged, but two neighbors stepped between us, holding him back. Phones kept recording. This wasn't just my revenge. It was a neighborhood show, and the stars of the meltdown had finally arrived. My mom collapsed against the car, sobbing. How could you do this? Everyone is watching. I sipped my coffee, calm as stone. Funny. Everyone watched when you toasted him with 150 grand while calling my daughter a waste of money. Gasps rippled through the neighbors. People whispered. Some shook their heads. Others laughed bitterly. The golden family image my parents had paraded for years was dissolving in front of them. My dad tried one last bluff, his voice breaking. Son, this is still our home. We raised you here. You can't take that away. I walked across the street, folder in hand. Calm, slow. The cameras followed. I handed him the papers, all neatly clipped together. Proof of the finder's fee scam. Proof of their debts. Proof of every threat, every lie, every attempt to destroy me. This isn't your home, I said, my voice low but sharp enough to cut. You forfeited that the day you sold me out and cashed in on my desperation. Now it's just property, and I own it. My brother shouted, "You're a monster!" I smirked. No, I just learned from the best. Silence. Neighbors stared. My mom's sobs turned into wails. My dad dropped onto the curb like his knees gave out. My brother kept thrashing, but nobody moved to help him. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was just a liar exposed under sunlight. I turned, showed the crowd my phone, played the recording of my brother, calling my daughter an expense, played the voicemail where they threatened to ruin me. Gasps again. People muttered. The final nail in their social coffin was hammered in. I didn't need to scream, didn't need to argue. The truth did all the work. I handed my dad one last item, a folded pamphlet. The shelter brochure I'd picked up at Legal Aid the night I signed the sale. I kept it in my pocket ever since, a reminder of just how low they'd pushed me. You remember this place? I asked. $10 a night. The same roof I slept under when you called her a lost cause. Might be a good fit for all of you now. He stared at it, trembling. My mom tried to snatch it away, but I pulled it back, tucked it into his shirt pocket myself. This is where you belong, I said flatly. Among people who know what it feels like to have nothing. Because that's all you have left. I walked away before they could answer. Behind me, their shouting turned to silence. Phones kept filming. Neighbors whispered. Some laughed openly. Their empire didn't collapse quietly. It collapsed on a stage, with everyone watching. Weeks later, I stood in the yard of our house. Her grandfather's place. The one I fixed up using the inheritance, plus what I got from selling their foreclosed property. My daughter kicked a soccer ball across the grass, laughing in the sunlight. She didn't ask about her grandparents anymore. Kids are smart. She knew they weren't worth keeping. Word around the extended family was brutal. Cousins who lost money in my brother's business cut them off completely. My aunt still spits his name like poison. Neighbors turned their backs in the grocery store. Their phones don't ring anymore, except with debt collectors. And me? I don't lose sleep over it. They tried to destroy me when I was weakest. They cashed in on my pain. They called my daughter worthless. Now they sit in borrowed rooms, broke, humiliated, blamed by everyone who once cheered for them. They built their empire on my ruin. I built my peace on theirs. Story 5. Parents said, "You're fine on your own. She needs it more." After giving the car, Grandpa bought me to my sister. Grandpa found out, exposed the forgery, threatened legal action, and handed me everything back while my parents lost their minds at the table. Hey, Reddit. My folks always acted like my sister was royalty, and I was just there to survive. One day, things blew up so bad the whole family got dragged into it. But before we get to the chaos, let me tell you how it all started. My name's Jason Reed. I'm 24, live with my parents because rent around here is ridiculous, and work in a small office about 2 miles from our house. My family isn't rich, but we're not broke either. Dad's a contractor, Mom does bookkeeping, and my grandpa Henry basically built half this town back in his day. He's old school, tough guy, retired now but still sharp as a knife. People respect him. I graduated 2 years ago, been trying to build some kind of career since then. I work at a shipping company doing scheduling and logistics. Not glamorous, but it's a start. Here's the thing. Every morning, rain or shine, I walk to work. 2 miles there, 2 miles back. And this isn't some nice stroll through the park. Our weather is either pouring rain or freezing wind most of the year. People at work keep asking why I don't drive. I just say, don't have a car yet, and leave it at that. What I don't tell them is that my grandpa actually bought me a car after graduation. Brand new Toyota. I only found out a year later because my parents gave it to my younger sister Megan instead. Yeah, she's 20, still in college, goes to parties, posts selfies nonstop, that kind of thing. I didn't even know the car was mine until recently, but we'll get there. Anyway, back to the rain. That Monday morning, it was coming down sideways. The kind of rain where no umbrella on earth is big enough. My jacket was soaked through before I even hit the main road. By the time I got to the office, my shoes felt like I had buckets tied to my feet. I pushed through the front doors, dripping water everywhere, and the receptionist, Carrie, gave me that look she always gives me. Like she feels bad, but doesn't want to say it out loud. "Rough morning, Jason," she asked, handing me some paper towels. "Same as every day," I said, forcing a smile. My hair was plastered to my forehead, clothes sticking to me. Upstairs, I passed Sarah from accounting. She shook her head like she always does. "Why don't you just drive, man?" "If I had a car, maybe I would," I said, trying to make it sound like a joke. It wasn't funny, though. My hands were shaking from the cold as I sat at my desk. The worst part? My boss, Mr. Edwards, doesn't care about weather excuses. "You're late? You're late?" End of story. And being soaked through when I show up doesn't exactly scream promotion material. Last week, I overheard him telling another manager, "Jason's a hard worker, but he looks like he's barely holding it together." That stuck with me. So yeah, the walking thing wasn't just annoying, it was actually messing with my job. At lunch, Mark, this guy I talk to sometimes, sat across from me in the break room. "Man, you take the bus or what?" he asked, nodding at my still damp jacket hanging over a chair. "Nope. Walk seriously? 2 miles in this weather?" I shrugged. "Keeps me in shape." He laughed, shaking his head. "You're nuts." What was I supposed to say? "Nah, my parents gave away the car that was supposed to be mine." I'm not saying that to a coworker. I had my pride. After work, it was still raining. I started the trek home, hood up, hands buried in my pockets. I cut through the park like I always do. There's this little wooden shelter near the basketball court where I sometimes stop to check my phone out of the rain. That day, I heard a voice before I even got close. Megan's voice. She was leaning against the shelter wall with one of her college friends, laughing into her phone. I was about to just walk past until I heard what she said. "Yeah, Grandpa bought me that Toyota." Sweet, right? Mom and Dad said I deserved it since I've got way more going on than Jason. He's fine walking. He doesn't do anything anyway. I froze, literally stopped in my tracks. Her friend asked something I couldn't hear over the rain, and Megan laughed again. "Jason? Please, he doesn't care. He's used to it." Used to it? I felt my face heat up even though I was half soaked and shivering. She had no idea I was standing maybe 10 feet away, hearing every word. I didn't say anything. Didn't even move until she walked off toward the parking lot, keys jingling in her hand. Then I saw it. The car. My car. Sitting there under the streetlight, clean and shiny while I stood there dripping like a stray dog. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about a car. It was about everything. The way my parents looked at me like I'd be fine no matter what, like I didn't need help, like Megan's life somehow mattered more. I walked the rest of the way home in the rain, fists jammed in my pockets, not even feeling the cold anymore, because now I knew the truth. The next day, I didn't say anything at breakfast. Megan was at the table scrolling her phone, chewing cereal like she had no care in the world. Mom was packing lunches. Dad was reading the news on his tablet. Normal morning, except I couldn't stop thinking about what I heard last night. I watched Megan grab the car keys from the counter like she owned the place. That was it. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "We need to talk about the car." She looked up for maybe half a second, then back at her phone. "What car?" "The Toyota. The one Grandpa bought. It was supposed to be mine." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, are you serious?" Mom and Dad already told me it made more sense for me to have it. "You don't even go anywhere." I stared at her. "I walk to work every day, Megan." 2 miles. In the rain. That car was meant for me. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "You're so dramatic." "It's just a car. I actually have a life, you know? College, parties, friends. You're like, what? Work and home. Work and home. Boring." That hit harder than it should have. Dad finally looked up from the tablet. "It's 2 miles for you, son. 2 buses and a transfer for her. From a purely practical standpoint, the car covers more ground with Megan." "Practical for who?" I said. "You could have told me." Instead, I find out because I overheard her bragging about it. Megan shrugged like I was complaining about the weather. "You didn't need it." I did. End of story. Mom chimed in without looking at me, just tossing something into the trash. "Jason, you've always been fine on your own. Megan needs more help right now. She's younger. College is expensive. Just let it go." That line, "you've always been fine on your own," I'd heard it before. When Megan got a laptop for school while I used the old family desktop, when she got her phone upgraded first because she's younger and needs to stay connected, even when birthdays came around and hers turned into big parties while mine were just cake at home. I didn't say anything back then. I thought it didn't matter. But standing there now, dripping anger instead of rainwater, I realized it had been years of the same thing. Megan first. Always Megan. I looked right at her. You knew it was mine. She put her phone down finally, smirking. Yeah, and? I still got it, didn't I? I wanted to say a lot right then, but Dad's voice cut in. That's enough, both of you. Jason, don't start fights over nothing. Nothing. That word kept bouncing around in my head. I grabbed my jacket off the chair. Fine, I said. Enjoy the car. Megan snorted like it was funny. Don't be so salty, Jason. Maybe when I'm done with it, you can have what's left. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. Work was rough that day. I kept replaying the morning in my head. Megan's smirk. Dad calling it nothing. Mom not even looking at me when she said Megan needed more help. By lunch, I couldn't focus on anything. Mark noticed. You good, man? You look like you're about to punch a wall. Family stuff, I said, keeping it short. The rain started again around 5. Not just light rain either. Full sideways wind, water coming down in sheets. The kind where cars drive through puddles and splash the sidewalks. And there I was, walking like always. I cut through the same park on the way home. By then it was dark, streetlights glowing off the wet pavement. My hood kept blowing back in the wind. Halfway through, I slipped on the sidewalk, feet right out from under me. Landed hard on my elbow. Pain shot up my arm so bad I couldn't move for a second. Whoa, you okay? I looked up. Mark. He'd been driving by and saw me go down. Yeah, I muttered, trying to stand. My elbow said otherwise. Get in, he said, unlocking his car. You're gonna freeze out here. I didn't argue. On the drive home, Mark kept glancing at me. You seriously walk in this every day? Yeah. Man, you need a car. I told him everything. About Grandpa. About Megan. About my parents. I told him I'd only found out last week the car was meant for me. But the words stuck. He just nodded. Mark dropped me off in front of the house. Get that arm checked, he said. Yeah, thanks. Inside, Megan's car wasn't in the driveway. Figures. She was probably out with friends while I sat there soaked and hurting. That was the night I decided something was going to change. Sunday morning, I was at home nursing a sore elbow from that fall in the rain. Megan was gone early, probably off to brunch or whatever she does on weekends. Mom was cleaning. Dad was out back messing with the grill even though it was too cold for it. Grandpa Henry called around noon. Jason, he said, voice sharp like always. You free tonight? Yeah, I said. Good. Whole family's coming for dinner. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. That was it. No explanation. Typical Henry. I didn't think much of it at first. He has these family dinners every couple months. Usually nothing dramatic, just food and him giving people updates about his garden or whatever project he's into. But there was something in his tone this time. Short. Clipped. Later, I found out what happened. My coworker Mark goes to the same church as Grandpa Henry. Small town, everybody knows everybody. After Sunday service that morning, Mark was talking to Henry about how nice it was that he bought that new car for his granddaughter. Henry said, Granddaughter? Mark nodded. Yeah, Megan. She drives it to campus all the time. Jason told me you gave it to her after graduation. Real generous of you. Henry didn't say much back. Just gave one of those tight smiles he does when he's mad. Mark said he walked off without another word. So yeah, by the time dinner rolled around, Grandpa already knew something was off. When we got to his place that evening, you could feel it right away. The man wasn't smiling. Normally, he greets everybody at the door, makes small talk, pours drinks. Not tonight. He just nodded and told us to sit. The whole family was there. Me, Mom, Dad, Megan, even Aunt Carol and Uncle Steve with their 2 kids. Big table, big meal, but quiet. We ate for a few minutes with just the sound of silverware clinking. Then Henry spoke. Jason, he said, looking straight at me. How's the car? I froze. Megan's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Mom glanced at Dad. Dad cleared his throat. What car? I said, even though I knew exactly what he meant. Henry's eyes narrowed. The Toyota I bought you for graduation. The table went dead silent. Aunt Carol stopped chewing. Uncle Steve raised his eyebrows like he already knew this was about to get ugly. Megan finally spoke. Oh, that car? Grandpa, Mom, and Dad said it was better for me to have it. Jason doesn't mind. I turned to her. Doesn't mind? You've been driving past me in the rain for a year. She shrugged. You never said anything. Henry didn't raise his voice. He set his fork down with care and folded his hands. Thomas, Linda, explain. Dad held up his hands. Dad, relax. We thought it made sense. Jason works close by. Megan has classes across town. Late nights. She needed it more. You forged his name on the paperwork, Henry said. Not a question. A statement. Mom didn't look at me. Jason, your sister's younger. Late classes, ride shares falling through. She needs the safety net right now. I felt my chest tighten. Handouts? It was mine. You didn't even tell me. Megan rolled her eyes. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Henry turned on her so fast she actually leaned back in her chair. You knew it was for him? She kept the car on campus most weeks. No Sunday drives by Henry's place, no chance meetings, so he never saw her in it. She smirked like it was nothing. I figured, but Mom said, I don't care what your mother said. His voice was like a whip. I bought it for Jason. It was in his name. You had no right. Dad tried again. Dad, Megan's young. She's got more going on. Jason can handle himself. He always has. That line again. He can handle himself. Like that made it okay. Henry's face went red. So because he doesn't complain, you take advantage? Is that it? Nobody answered. I finally spoke up. I've been late to work because of this. Missed opportunities. I walk home in storms while they hand her the keys. And you all just... What? Pretend it's fine? Megan muttered under her breath. It's not the end of the world. Henry heard it. Not the end of the world? He stood so fast his chair tipped. You let him suffer so she could play princess with something that wasn't hers. And you lied to me about it. Dad's jaw tightened. Dad, you're making a scene. Henry leaned over the table, eyes locked on him. You haven't seen me make a scene yet. The room went silent again. You could hear the clock ticking in the hall. Then Henry said, calm but cold, after dinner, we're fixing this. Tonight. Nobody argued after that. The tension in that dining room felt like the air before a thunderstorm. Nobody touched their food after Grandpa Henry said we were fixing it tonight. Megan sat with her arms crossed like she was the victim. Mom kept her eyes on her plate. Dad stared at Henry like he was trying to stare him down. But everyone knew Henry always won those battles. Henry pointed right at Dad. Thomas, you tell me right now why you thought it was okay to forge your own son's name on something I bought for him. Dad set his fork down slowly. I already told you. Megan had a bigger need. Jason works close by. He doesn't need a car for a 2-mile commute. She's in college, late nights, different campuses. Stop. Henry's voice cut him off like a knife. Don't stand there and justify stealing from one child to spoil the other. Mom finally spoke up, soft but defensive. Dad, it wasn't stealing. It's all in the family. Jason's always been the strong one. He never needed as much help as Megan. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. You call walking to work in storms not needing help? You think showing up drenched, late, freezing, while she drives by laughing with her friends is fine? Megan rolled her eyes. I never laughed at you. Yes, you did, I shot back. Last week. You drove right by while I was soaked to the bone. You waved out the window. For a blink, she looked guilty. Then the smirk slid back into place. That was just me saying hi, she said, smirking like it was all a joke. Henry slammed his hand on the table. The plates jumped. You think this is funny, Megan? Watching your brother struggle while you ride around in something that wasn't even yours? She flinched a little but kept her mouth shut. Henry turned to Dad again. Where are the papers? The title. Dad shifted in his chair. At home. Mom tried to step in again. Dad, you're overreacting. Megan's used to the car now. Taking it away will ruin everything for her classes. Henry cut her off. And what about Jason's life? Did that matter at all while you two were playing favorites? Dad's jaw tightened. It's not favoritism. Jason doesn't complain. He handles things. I looked right at him. Maybe I don't complain because you don't listen anyway. That shut him up for a second. Megan finally snapped, throwing her napkin down. Oh my God. This is ridiculous. It's just a car. Jason can buy his own if it's that serious. Henry's head turned so fast toward her, I thought she might actually shrink into her chair. You're driving something you had no right to, bought with my money, meant for him, and you sit here acting like it's nothing. She crossed her arms again, muttering, whatever. Henry leaned on the table, both hands flat. Thomas, Linda, I've watched for years while you spoil one kid and expect the other to survive on scraps. It ends tonight. Mom's face went red. Dad, don't talk like that in front of everyone. Why not? Henry shot back. Maybe everyone should see what kind of parents you've been. Aunt Carol cleared her throat like she wanted to disappear. Uncle Steve just kept eating slowly like he was watching TV. Dad's voice rose. You're making this bigger than it is. We did what made sense. No, Henry said, pointing right at him. You did what was easy. You gave the loud one everything and left the quiet one to fend for himself. Because it cost you nothing to ignore him. I felt my stomach twist because he was right. Megan muttered, It's still not fair to just take it now. Henry's voice dropped low. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Jason's been walking through storms while you drive past him in his car? Forged paperwork? Lies? And you call that fair? Nobody said a word. Henry pushed his chair back. After dinner, we get the title. Then tomorrow, the car goes to Jason. If you refuse, I call the lawyer and the police. Forgery's a crime, Thomas's. Dad's face went pale at the word crime. Mom started to say something, but Henry held up a hand. Not another word. You've done enough talking. The room stayed dead silent except for the clock ticking on the wall. You could feel the whole thing splitting the family right down the middle. Henry sat back down, still glaring at Dad. Eat your food, then we settle this. Nobody had much of an appetite after that. Dinner ended with barely anyone touching the food. As soon as plates were cleared, Henry stood up and told Dad to follow him. Where are we going? Dad asked. Your house, Henry said. We're getting the paperwork right now. Nobody argued. Mom looked nervous but didn't say a word. Megan huffed like this was the biggest inconvenience in the world. Aunt Carol and Uncle Steve stayed behind with the kids while the rest of us drove back. At the house, Dad went straight to the filing cabinet in the office. Henry stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locked on him the whole time. Dad pulled out a folder and handed it over. Henry opened it, flipping through slowly. Then he stopped, held up one page, and his face went hard. Jason, he said, come here. I walked over. At the top of the page was my name, neat and typed. At the bottom, a signature that wasn't mine. Henry turned on Dad. You forged his signature to transfer the title to Megan. Most of the mail and the insurance were under my parents' address and policy anyway. Anything from the DMV went straight to them. Dad didn't even deny it. It was just easier that way. Jason was at work. We needed the paperwork done fast. Fast? Henry snapped. You needed it fast so you could give away something that wasn't yours. That's what you mean. Mom jumped in from the hallway. Dad, stop acting like this is criminal. It's family business. We were just trying to help Megan. Help her? Henry's voice was rising now. You lied to me. You stole from him. You left him to freeze in the rain while you played favorites. And now I see forgery on top of it. Megan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. It's still just a car. You're all acting like it's life or death. Henry wheeled on her. It's not about the car anymore. It's about respect, about fairness, about the way this family treats Jason like he doesn't matter. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. This is so dramatic. I finally spoke. Megan, you knew it was mine. You saw me walking every day. You knew what Mom and Dad did, and you didn't care. She shrugged. I didn't ask for it. They gave it to me. And you didn't refuse either, I said. You drove right by me like it was funny. Her mouth opened like she had a comeback, but nothing came out. Henry turned back to Dad. You forged his name for what? So she could ride around like some queen while he works his tail off? What else have you lied about? Dad slammed the drawer shut. Nothing. We just thought Megan needed it more. Henry held up the paper. You understand this is illegal, right? Forging a signature? Dad glared. You wouldn't call the cops on your own son. You want to test me? Henry's voice was ice. Because I will. This ends tonight. Mom's voice went sharp. Dad, you can't just undo everything. Megan's used to the car now. Taking it away will mess up her whole semester. Henry pointed at me. And what about Jason's life? Did it matter at all to you? Did it matter when he walked through storms while you two covered for her? Did it matter when he showed up to work soaked while Megan blasted music driving by in his car? Mom went quiet. Henry shoved the folder into my hands. This belongs to you. Tomorrow we change the title back legally. If Thomas or Linda so much as hesitate, I call the lawyer myself. Dad's face turned red. Dad, this is insane. We're family. Henry didn't back down. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie. You lost the right to hide behind that word the second you pulled this stunt. The room went silent except for the rain hitting the windows. Then Henry spoke again, slower this time. And since you clearly can't be trusted, there's something else you all need to know. Mom frowned. What are you talking about? Henry looked right at me. I've been saving money for Jason since he was a kid. A trust fund. Planned to give it to him later, but now, after this, I'm moving it out of your control permanently. Mom's jaw dropped. Dad stiffened like someone had punched him. Megan stopped smirking. You can't just do that, Dad said. I can, Henry replied. And I will. Because you've shown me what happens when you're in charge of anything that belongs to him. Mom's voice rose. Dad, be reasonable. We needed to help Megan. She's younger. She needs support. Henry cut her off. No. What you mean is Jason can suffer while Megan coasts through life. You've been doing it for years. It ends tonight. Nobody spoke after that. Henry turned to me. Tomorrow morning, you'll have the car in your name. And the trust. I'll handle everything myself. Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but even he knew it was over. The Monday morning, Henry showed up at our house before anyone was even dressed. He was holding a thick envelope under his arm. He didn't knock, just walked in like he owned the place, which honestly, he kind of did. "Jason," he said, handing me the envelope right there in the living room. "This is yours." Dad came down the stairs buttoning his shirt. "Dad, what's going on now?" Henry didn't even look at him. "I told you last night. We're done playing games. Jason gets the car back today. And he gets this." I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, everything with my name printed clearly at the top. A trust fund. Way bigger than I expected. Mom came in from the kitchen, eyes already narrowing. "Dad, this isn't fair. We didn't even know about this." "That's the point," Henry said. "I kept it private because I thought I could trust you not to screw him over with what little you did know." Clearly, I was wrong. Megan shuffled in, still in pajamas, hair a mess. She saw the envelope in my hands and froze. "Wait," she said slowly. "What is that?" Henry didn't sugarcoat it. "Money I've been saving for Jason since he was a kid. Investments, savings accounts, all of it. He gets full control starting today." Megan's jaw dropped. "Why him?" "What about me?" Henry turned on her. "What about you? You've taken enough that didn't belong to you already." She crossed her arms. "This is ridiculous. You're punishing me for Mom and Dad's decision." I spoke up. "You didn't exactly fight them on it, Megan. You knew the car was mine. You watched me walking in the rain while you drove past." She bit her lip, but didn't say anything. Dad finally snapped. "Dad, you can't just hand him everything like this. We're his parents. We should have some say in this." Henry stepped closer, his voice sharp. "You had your chance to look out for him. Instead, you forged his name, lied to me, and spoiled one kid while ignoring the other. You're done having a say." Mom's voice rose, tight and angry. "You always favor Jason. Megan's the younger one. She needs more help." "Enough," Henry cut her off. "Every time you say that, what you really mean is Jason can carry all the weight while Megan coasts through life. You call it helping her, but it's just easier for you. You think because Jason doesn't complain, it doesn't hurt him? You've turned him into the pack mule of this family." That hit harder than I expected. Because it was true. Megan tried again. "You act like I stole the car myself. I just took what they gave me." Henry pointed at her. "And you never once thought to give it back when you found out it wasn't yours? Never once thought about your brother walking to work every day?" She didn't answer. Henry turned back to Dad. "I warned you last night. We transfer the car title today. I already called my lawyer this morning. If you refuse, we press charges for forgery." Dad looked stunned. "You wouldn't drag this family into court." "You did that," Henry said flatly. "The moment you decided one child deserved everything and the other got nothing." The room went dead quiet. I looked down at the documents again. My name everywhere. Accounts I never knew existed. Years of savings, investments, enough to change everything. Megan muttered, "So he gets the car and the money? That's insane." Henry shot her a look that shut her up instantly. "Jason gets what was always his? You had no right to any of it." Mom tried one last time. "Dad, be reasonable. Megan's classes, her life. It all depends on that car now. You're ruining her future over some paperwork." Henry's eyes went cold. "And what about Jason's future? Did it matter when you made him walk in freezing rain while she drove past? Did it matter when you lied to his face about something meant for him?" Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Henry handed me another paper. "This gives you full control of the trust starting today. They can't touch a dime of it, and they won't touch the car again either." The lawyer had already filed the transfer. The bank would flip full access as soon as processing cleared. Dad stared at the floor. Megan looked like she wanted to scream, but couldn't find the words. I finally said it out loud. "I'm done letting you all treat me like I don't matter. I'm not your afterthought anymore." Henry nodded like he'd been waiting to hear that. "Good, because things change, starting now. And if anyone here tries to stop it, I'll drag this whole thing to court myself." Nobody argued this time. By noon that same day, Henry had me and Dad at the DMV. He wasn't giving anyone time to think this over or try to back out. The clerk looked over the paperwork, typed a few things into her computer, and handed me the new title. My name. Not Megan's, not my parents'. Mine. Dad stood there stiff the whole time, jaw tight, not saying a word. Henry didn't even look at him. When we walked back out into the parking lot, the Toyota was sitting right there. For the first time since this whole thing started, I had the keys in my hand. Henry clapped me on the shoulder. "It's yours now," the way it should have been from the start. Dad muttered, "This could have been handled differently." Henry turned on him fast. No, you had your chance to handle it, and you blew it. You lied, forged papers, and left your son to walk in the rain while you spoiled Megan rotten. Don't stand here acting like the victim. Dad didn't say anything after that. When we got back to the house, Mom was waiting. Henry had me call the insurer from the DMV lot. The policy moved under my name, and I took both sets of keys. She saw the keys in my hand and the title folder under my arm, and her face went tight. So that's it? She said. You just take it away from Megan like she doesn't matter? Henry glared at her. You made Jason not matter for a year. Now you're upset Megan loses something that was never hers? Unbelievable. Megan came down the stairs then, saw the folder, and stopped cold. You actually did it? I nodded. It's mine now. Legally. Her arms crossed instantly. This is such crap. I need that car for school. How am I supposed to get around now? Henry didn't let her finish. Maybe ask the parents who caused this mess. Or try walking like your brother's been doing for a year. Actions have consequences, Megan. She glared at him, but didn't talk back this time. Henry pulled the trust paperwork out of the folder and set it on the table. Jason, this gives you full control starting today. Bank accounts, investments, everything in your name alone. Your parents have zero access. I've already called the bank to confirm. Mom snapped. You can't cut us out like this. That money was supposed to be for the family. Henry's voice went cold. No, it was for Jason. I saved every dime myself. You didn't even know it existed. And after this stunt, you never will again. Dad finally spoke up. You're tearing this family apart over one mistake. One mistake? Henry's hand hit the table so hard the papers jumped. You stole from your own son. Lied about it. Let him suffer so Megan could play queen. That's not one mistake. That's who you are. The room went silent. I signed the paperwork while they all watched. Henry stood beside me the whole time like a witness. When I finished, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, It's done! Jason controls his own future now. Nobody here touches what's his ever again. Mom tried again, voice sharp now. So what? He just takes the car, the money, everything? After we raised him? I looked straight at her. You raised me to carry everything while Megan got handed everything. You don't get to play the hero now. Megan muttered, You're acting like you had it so bad. I turned to her. You drove by me in the rain while I walked miles to work. You knew the car was mine. You said nothing. You laughed. So yeah, Megan, I had it bad enough. She looked away, arms still crossed. No comeback this time. Henry faced my parents. You two should be ashamed. You talk about family, but you only ever looked out for one kid? The other you left behind because it was easier for you. Dad's face was red. Mom's lips were tight. Neither spoke. Henry looked at me then. You have the car, the trust. Use both to build something better. Move out if you want. Start fresh. You don't owe them anything now. And for the first time, I realized I didn't. That evening, I packed my things. Just the essentials for now. The house was tense and silent while I loaded the car. Mom sat at the table staring at nothing. Dad stood outside smoking, saying nothing. Megan stayed in her room with the door shut. Henry helped me carry the last box. You sure about this? He asked. Yeah, I said. It's time. He nodded once. Good. Don't let them drag you back into their mess. I drove away before dark. Rain started again halfway across town, but this time I was dry, warm, in a car that was actually mine. I didn't know exactly where I was headed yet. Maybe an apartment, maybe somewhere farther away. But I knew one thing. I wasn't coming back to be the family's afterthought again. They could keep their excuses. I had the keys, the trust, and for the first time in years, control over my own life. And I wasn't giving it back. Story 6. I discovered this in the most unexpected way, right at the beginning of our annual guys fishing weekend. You see, it's a 3-day fishing trip with my buddies, Michael, Richard, Daniel, and me, David, up at the lake. Meanwhile, our wives have their own girls' weekend. Now we've been friends for years, and Richard and Susan were our closest pals. Daniel, you see, was Richard's nephew, a few years younger than the rest of us, but we gladly welcomed him into our close-knit group of friends. As time passed, he not only became an integral part of our circle, but also one of my most dedicated employees. You know, when Jennifer and I tied the knot, we were just high school grads. But I was driven and put in the hard work. Shortly after graduation, I launched a small pool service business. And believe it or not, within a mere 2 years, it had expanded to cater to over 100 homes. With the assistance of 4 employees, the business kept on flourishing. Fast forward 20 years, and I was overseeing the management of more than 1,500 homes, with a team of 30 committed employees. And right at the heart of it all was Daniel, an extraordinary asset to the company. His unwavering passion, tireless work ethic, and incredible camaraderie with the team set him apart as an outstanding manager for one of our crucial operations. Seeing his exceptional contributions, I decided to promote him, offering not only a substantial salary increase, but also the potential for future ownership in the company. What started as a professional relationship soon blossomed into a deep friendship, and we relished working alongside each other throughout the years. Together, we expanded the business, solidifying its position as the top-tier pool service company. With a significant number of homes boasting pools in need of constant care and upkeep, we were in high demand. As our services became increasingly sought after, our revenue and profits skyrocketed, solidifying the company's prominent position in the market. With the business expanding, the significance of effective financial management became crystal clear. I turned to William, a highly trusted family member and a retired tax accountant with extensive financial expertise. Following his guidance, I made a bold move, leveraging all the equity in my own home to fuel the expansion of the business. When the mortgage rates hit record lows, Jennifer's spouse, Jessica, a corporate attorney, proposed a strategic move, placing the company into a trust to safeguard our assets against potential liabilities and future lawsuits. I heeded her counsel and took on the role of the sole trustee. Both Jessica and her attorney spouse played pivotal roles in our journey to success, offering priceless guidance and recommendations that ultimately became instrumental in the company's prosperity. On the very day we were about to embark on our vacation, Jessica and her squad of gal pals dramatically swooped down upon our luxurious abode, ready for a weekend of absolute extravagance. I was handed down firm orders. Do not dare to intrude upon their antics. They were on a mission to revel in the absence of us husbands. And you know what? I gladly complied. I couldn't wait to break free from the clutches of their intense girl talk and gossip for the entire weekend. A fishing trip sounded like paradise after slaving away for weeks running my growing company. The thought of reeling in some big catches and sipping the cold one with the boys was pure heaven. As I left the ladies to their wine-fueled afternoon of giggles and secrets, I couldn't help but think how lucky I was to have Jennifer and her gang of mischief makers in my life. Sure, they might drive us husbands crazy at times, but deep down, we knew they were the spice that added flavor to our otherwise ordinary days. I couldn't help but smile as I drove over to Richard's house, knowing that the weekend's adventures were just beginning. We had meticulously planned our trip to the lake, aiming to depart at 6 p.m. to reach our destination by 9 p.m. The 3-day excursion promised to be an exciting time filled with fishing and camaraderie. As we gathered our gear and packed up the car, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten my special fishing lure, which I had been diligently working on in my workshop. For me, fishing was not just a hobby, it was a passion. I took great pride in crafting my fishing lures and tackle combinations, believing that the right equipment could make all the difference in a successful catch. The lure I had been diligently crafting over the past week held a profound personal meaning. It was a true masterpiece, a custom creation meticulously designed to lure in the finest fish and provide me with boundless joy on the water. Recognizing the pivotal importance of having this flawless lure, I couldn't fathom going on our fishing trip without it. I made it abundantly clear to my fellow angling comrades that they were tasked with the sacred mission of retrieving my treasured lure before our epic adventure could commence. I jumped in my car at around 5 p.m. and drove the 7+ minutes back to my house, parked behind all the women's cars, and walked to the side door and quietly made my way down to the workshop, not wanting to disturb the girls or get yelled at for coming home early, trying to remain quiet. I made my way over to the bench and noticed that I could hear the women chatting. I remember laughing when I realized they were already drunk, as they were giggling and having fun. They were sitting in the shade next to the tiki hut, which was at the side of my house. The workbench was just below the outside window and was close enough to hear their conversation. Now I am not an eavesdropper and couldn't give a crap about their conversation. But then, as I overheard my spouse discussing me in bed, my curiosity was piqued. For some reason, a mischievous idea popped into my head. I thought, why not record this conversation and playfully tease her about it when I returned? With that thought in mind, I discreetly activated the recording feature on my iPhone. Little did I know that the next few minutes would shatter my fishing trip and turn my entire world completely upside down. Apparently, I just walked into the middle of a steamy gossip session. The ladies were certainly not holding back, and I couldn't help but chuckle at their candidness. It seemed like they were discussing the not-so-private details of their love lives, and things were getting pretty spicy. Sarah, with her mischievous laugh, didn't shy away from dishing out the details about her relationship with her husband. Me? Well, imagine my surprise when I overheard her sharing with her girlfriends just how skilled I was with my, tongue and how I consistently managed to, well, make her very happy after all these years. I couldn't help but think, you go, Sarah, brag about your superstar hubby. But then she went on, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. She mentioned how, as they say, after years of marriage, things might not be as, adventurous as they used to be. But hey, it happens to the best of us. But then, out of nowhere, one of the girls dropped the $1 million question. Is that why you did it with Daniel? My ears perked up as I leaned in, curious to see how Sarah would respond to that bombshell. The girls were in full detective mode, trying to piece together the puzzle of Sarah's recent escapades. Sarah continued, no, David and I have a good sex life, and he's always satisfied me in that way. I love him and would never intentionally have started anything with Daniel. It kind of just happened. The girls chimed in. Come on, Sarah, you cheated on David. You can't be that satisfied with your marriage. She responded, no, you don't understand. My love for David means the world to me. He's not just my partner. He's my sanctuary, my solace, the beat of my heart, and the place where I feel most secure. And yes, he absolutely fulfills me. I cherish him deeply. This foolish entanglement with Daniel was nothing more than a colossal blunder. But you did mention that Daniel was quite skilled in that department, so it raises the question, did you two have more than just a one-time encounter? We're a bit puzzled here. Tell us the whole story, she replied. Girls, anything I tell you has to stay here. The guys would kill Daniel, and my husband would kick me to the curb if he found out. I would never hurt him that way. He's such a sweet man, but he would never understand. Do you promise to keep this just between us girls? I didn't hear anything, but I assumed they all nodded their heads in agreement, she continued. After Susan dumped Daniel last month, he was distraught. He was completely shocked. He was about to ask her to marry him. That afternoon, when I saw him at the restaurant, we sat together and he opened up to me and told me the entire story. Girls, he cried. This big, strong dude was crying and my heart went out to him. I felt so bad for him. So I sat with him until he calmed down. He was so depressed and upset. I felt almost a motherly need to take care of him. One of the leaves interrupted. Yes, you're old enough to be his mother. Cut us some slack, Sarah. You had a physical need, not a maternal one. As it happened, you were correct, but in that moment, I hadn't even considered the idea of intimacy. Regardless, he escorted me to my car and expressed his gratitude for being a supportive friend and allowing him to share his feelings. I simply smiled and gave him a friendly kiss. That's when the spark started. Before I could move away from him, he pulled me close and gave me the sexiest kiss I can remember. It's been years since David kissed me like that, and that kiss turned my knees to jello. After we broke the kiss and without saying a word, he took my hand and led me to his truck, which was parked several rows over under a shaded tree. Don't ask me why I let him do this. It felt like I was spellbound. Anyway, we sat in the back of his truck and made out like high school sweethearts for the next few minutes. And that's when he told me he always found me so sexy and fantasized about being with me. I have to admit that I was overwhelmed and flushed from his compliments. Richard's wife, Susan, spoke next. Wow, that's hot. We never realized you had that in you, Sarah replied. Me neither. I never thought about doing anything like that before, but it just kind of happened. That's when Michael's wife, Jessica, chimed in. I think all of us girls dream of doing that, but it never happens. Good for you. I'm so jealous. Let me fill you in on what unfolded next. Sarah went on to reveal that, after snapping back to her senses and comprehending the gravity of her actions, an overwhelming sense of guilt washed over her. She acknowledged that what she had done was absolutely wrong, and she understood that I would never be able to comprehend or forgive her. Therefore, she felt compelled to ensure that it would never happen again. She made it abundantly clear to Daniel that their encounter was a one-time mistake, and they could never engage in anything of the sort ever again. So they both agreed it was just a moment of passion and would remain their secret forever. Susan then asked her, how did she manage to end up in bed with Daniel and turn her husband into a cuckold? Hearing that question turned me into a broken man. I was just humiliated and lost. But I wanted to get enough information as possible, so I managed to continue recording. Sarah hesitated her answer, and in a somber voice, she said, No, please don't think that David is not a cuckold. He'd never allow that to happen. I just made another stupid mistake. I really messed up and should have known better. She then explained how Daniel had called her to ask her to lunch, and that she had first declined, telling him that they really shouldn't be seen together. But then, he confided in her, revealing that he had been battling depression and needed someone to talk to, someone who could truly understand what he was experiencing. To make amends, he even offered to whip up some lunch if she visited his house for just an hour. And that's when she made yet another colossal mistake by going to his house alone. Upon arrival, they sat down and conversed while sharing a meal. After about an hour of casual chat, he expressed how deeply he had been affected by their previous encounter. He was standing next to her as he was about to take their dishes to the sink and kissed her again, this time more passionately. It was one of those romantic, panty-dropping kisses girls dream about. Long story short, they ended up in his bed for the entire afternoon. She said it wasn't romantic by any means, just raw, and she knew it was wrong, but it just happened. And to be honest, it was the best sex she's had in years, and it was a nice encounter. She said after she showered and got dressed, she did tell him that this would never happen again and not to call her, and then told him he was a wonderful man and needed to find a woman his own age to love. So, both of them consented, I continued. And that's when Jessica finally broke her silence, saying, Sarah, I must admit, I'm still quite envious. I love Michael dearly, but I can't help but be curious about Daniel. Susan let out a low moan, seemingly caught up in the story, and remarked, That's quite wild. And poor David has no idea. He has no idea about Daniel or that you fantasize about him during sex. God, that's so wicked, Sarah. But you better fix your head and forget about Daniel. David's not a stupid man, and you might slip up and hurt him. Sarah responded and said, Don't worry about David. I'll make sure he's taken care of. And trust me, he'll never know about this, and I'll never do it again. I swear. It was a mistake. And living with this guilt has been difficult, to be honest. Along with the line, finally telling someone the entire story is helping me. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. The shock of Sarah's confession had left me in a state of disbelief. I knew I had to leave to distance myself from the situation, at least for now. So I picked up my fishing lure, then made my way back to Richard's house. The guys were waiting for my return, oblivious to the turmoil raging inside me. Tears flowed as I drove. I needed time to process everything, to come to terms with the betrayal I had just discovered. I wasn't ready to face Sarah or to confront her about what I had learned. I wanted to stick with the original plan, going away for the weekend and seeking solace in a place where I could be alone with my thoughts. But fate seemed to have a cruel sense of humor as I realized I would be spending those days with Daniel, the very person who had been involved in the heartbreaking affair. The prospect of being around him only added to my anguish. I had no idea what to anticipate, and a cloud of uncertainty hung over me like a heavy shroud. Would I manage to control my emotions? Could I confront him without succumbing to a torrent of anger or exposing the heartache that gnawed at me from within? In that very instant, I felt utterly isolated, and I silently prayed that somehow, someday, I would discover a means to heal my shattered heart. Upon my arrival, I noticed Richard outside, busily loading up his Escalade as I drew near. He could tell there was something wrong, and that my eyes were glassy. I knew I was not ready to say anything, but when he asked what was wrong, I lied that I had a migraine coming on and just needed to shut down for a while. He asked if I was sure because I looked bad, but I told him I'm used to dealing with this and that he should just let me sit in the front for the ride and I'll shut my eyes and I'm sure I'll be fine. He responded, Absolutely, not a problem at all. Why don't you head inside, take it easy, and we'll wrap up the packing. We're looking to hit the road in about 30 minutes, and I'll give you a heads up when we're all set. As anticipated, half an hour later, I found myself settled in the front seat, with my friend Richard taking care of everything. He took his wife's sleeping eye cover and a pair of his noise-canceling headphones and handed them to me as I sat in the passenger seat, while Daniel and Michael sat in the back along with the blindfold. The headphones put me in a dark place. My sensory perception was now limited to smell, touch, and taste, which allowed me to contemplate this unexpected situation. The guys understood my quietness and offered to help if I needed anything. I couldn't look at Daniel. I just kept my eyes shut and thanked them for their understanding. For the next 3 hours, still in that dark place, I was able to sit in peace and contemplate the train wreck I had just witnessed. As I reminisced about all the years we had shared, about how I had adored Sarah and felt like the luckiest person when she brought Michael and Katie into our lives, my heart ached. I recalled all the joyful moments we had experienced as a family, and the realization hit me that it might all be coming to an end. Tears welled up, and I hastily brushed them away before they could betray my emotions. For the first time in my memory, I found myself grappling with an overwhelming sense of despair and confusion. I had no answers or ideas on what to do and must have fallen asleep because the last thing I remember is Richard shaking my shoulder, waking me up at the fishing cabin for the next 2 days. I was unusually quiet and used my migraine as an excuse. The guys left me alone as I tried not to ruin the trip for Michael and Richard. I continued to struggle with my feelings as I looked at my life, both past and future. It was difficult, but I knew I would survive. 2 days later, still in doubt, I found myself on a trail to the lake, along with Daniel, Richard, and Michael, who were going to meet us down at the boat dock. I found myself following Daniel through the woods as I followed him along the path. I heard Sarah's words echo in my head, and suddenly I was full of anger. I noticed a large fallen branch the size of a large baseball bat on the side of the path. Without thinking, I picked it up, looked at Daniel, who was a few feet in front of me, and suddenly charged forward, hitting it hard onto his shoulder. I had initially aimed for his head, but at the very last moment, I altered my course and landed a devastating blow to his shoulder, causing him to let out a painful scream as he crumpled to the ground. I loomed over him, gazing down at the man who had betrayed me by sleeping with my wife. He clutched his injured shoulder as I bellowed, "That's for betraying me." And then, without hesitation, I delivered a powerful kick straight to his groin, causing him to double over in agony, howling in pain until he eventually lost consciousness. A few moments later, I came back to my senses and moved him over to a tree and set him up. He recovered after he regained consciousness. I told him I knew all about him and Sarah, and right now he's lucky he's still alive. He tried to apologize, claiming it only happened once, but I told him to shut up. I warned him not to talk to me for the rest of the trip and threatened him not to say one word to Sarah about this and that. If he does, he would live to regret it. He again said he was sorry and that this was all his fault, that I should please take it out on him, not Sarah. He said he was hurting from Susan leaving him and Sarah was there for him, that it had just happened, and she felt guilty afterward. Out of anger, I kicked him again and told him to shut up. Just then, Richard and Michael saw us and ran over and pulled me away. They then asked what was going on, but neither of us said anything. Daniel was quiet and held his ground in pain. Richard helped him get up, and we went back to the cabin for the next hour. Daniel was holding his shoulder, acting all pissed off because I attacked him from behind, and how it wasn't a fair fight. I glared at him and told him to shut up. Then I played the recording for everyone to hear. When the recording ended, Richard screamed at his nephew, "You freaking asshole! You betrayed our friend and the man that gave you a job. We were down and out and took you into his trust. You slept with one of our wives and had the nerve to come with us on this trip, and you're pissed off that David hurt you. You should be thankful that we didn't dump your ass in the middle of the lake. We don't want to see or hear from you for the rest of this trip. Not a single word," Michael sternly asserted. Then Michael chimed in saying, "You know, guys, there's another issue with this recording. You heard what my wife and Susan said, how thrilled they were about Sarah's affair and keeping it hush-hush. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sit well with me. And when I get back, Jessica and I will be having a serious conversation." Richard replied, "Yeah, you're right, Michael. That was BS and disrespectful to all of us." He then turned to Daniel, giving him a death stare, and said, "See what you've done. You've destroyed one marriage and possibly two others. Maybe we should dump you in the middle of the lake." Daniel just looked down at the floor and remained silent. I then said, "Guys, I agree they are all involved, but please give me a few days before you do anything. I'll give you a copy of the recording, but I need to confront Sarah before she knows what I've learned thanks to this jerk. I don't think I can stay with her. I'm definitely going to divorce her. I know I can't be with her. I just need a few days to figure things out." Richard looked over at his nephew and said, "Daniel, you're a piece of shit. You will not speak to Sarah or otherwise without our approval. If you warn Sarah what's about to come down on her, we will make your life a living hell right now. If you vanished right now, none of us would bat an eye. The sole reason I haven't pummeled you and left you stranded in these woods is because you're my nephew and still family. So don't say a word. Is that clear?" Daniel nodded in agreement and comprehension. For the remainder of the trip, nobody engaged with him, and he kept a low profile, sidestepping any potential conflicts. As we journeyed back home, I found myself wrestling with what to do about Sarah. I considered everything and wondered how she would have reacted if the roles were reversed. That was it. Suddenly, I had a plan. The plan was to talk about an affair, leading her to think it was me who had the affair and see how she reacts and what she would do if she forgave the one-off sex. Then I would go gentle on her. However she reacts, it's exactly the way I will treat her. The solution to her infidelity will now be in her own hands. I returned home and pulled into the driveway. I was in a dark place, but it was time to face Sarah, and I needed to keep my feelings in check and act normal, which was going to be one of the hardest things I've ever done. I got a warm welcome home when I entered the house. Sarah was dressed up and looking nice when she gave me a big hug and an excellent welcome home kiss, which I was going to be missing very soon. I was still pissed, but I stayed calm. My blood was boiling as I thought about what she had done, but the smell of her perfume and the nice dinner she prepared helped calm me down. We had an excellent dinner, and somehow I remained pleasant and listened to her. Tell me about the last few days. It was still relatively early when she took me up to the bedroom, saying she missed me and needed some extra loving. Obviously, she was horny and wanted some intimacy. I smiled to myself, knowing what was to come soon. Sarah wasted no time and made an attempt to initiate intimacy, but I found myself unable to respond, consumed by thoughts of her affair. Consequently, I couldn't continue. She gazed up at me in astonishment, clearly hurt by my lack of enthusiasm. So she inquired about what was bothering me. That's when it was time to reveal my hand. I had strategically positioned my phone on the nightstand, secretly recording the audio, ensuring there would be no misinterpretation of our conversation. I said, Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. There's someone else, and I feel so bad that I just can't perform. She was shocked and looked up at me and asked, What do you mean there's someone else? I told her sorry, and that it's only been a couple of times, but the sex is still great. I just can't get it out of my head. Her Latin temper flared as I predicted. You had sex with someone else, and you can't stop thinking of the sex? I said, Well, to be honest, the orgasms were the best ever, and I can't get the thought of all those amazing orgasms out of my head, which is why I couldn't get hard. I chose the words carefully, not implicating myself but just repeating her own words from the recording. She was in tears, evidently wounded by the idea of betrayal. Was I being unkind and harsh? Perhaps. However, the truth was that I was the one who had been wronged, not her. I allowed her to carry on. She shouted angrily, Well, screw you. You can pack your things and leave. I won't remain married to a cheater. You know, my dad cheated on my mom and it shattered her. I will not let you do that to me. Now get out. I'm going to divorce you and make you pay for this. I've been a perfect wife. I gave you two wonderful children, ran the household, made you dinner, and treated you with love. And this is how you repay me. I almost laughed at her demeanor and comments. She's not going to enjoy this in a few minutes, that's for sure. Sarah, it was just sex. Come on, it was just a one-time thing. Are you sure you want a divorce over this? She went, What do you mean? Only sex? Are you kidding? I don't believe you. And how do I know if there aren't others? I can't trust you. And yes, I want a divorce, and you're going to pay dearly for this. I replied, Wow, I didn't expect you to be so heartless and cruel. Like I said, there was no love. It was just sex, and only those 2 times. Is this really what you want? Are you sure there's no forgiveness possible? Maybe we can go to counseling. I tried to give her a fighting chance, but she was, in fact, stacking the odds against herself, and she didn't even know it. She declared, No, it's over. I won't remain married to a cheater. Just grab some of your belongings and leave. Go stay with Richard. We'll book a hotel room. But I don't want to see you anymore. My attorney will be in touch shortly. I couldn't resist a smile. Little did she know, she had unwittingly played right into her own downfall with those words in her tone. She yelled, Why do you have that smirk on your face? I told her that she just made my decision a lot easier. She asked what I meant by that, but I told her to get dressed and come with me. That there's something I would like to show her. She was still pissed and seething, but reluctantly followed me down to my workshop. I had her stand next to the same window where I made the recording. I told her to stay there and not move until I returned. I went outside and synced the car's Bluetooth speaker with my iPhone, then returned to the workshop. She was still angry, but now that confused as I stood next to her and then hit play on the phone. As my unfaithful wife listened to her own words, her confusion deepened, but she kept on listening. Then, her facial expression shifted to one of profound shock as the conversation unfolded. She broke down in tears and collapsed to her knees, fully comprehending the gravity of the situation. She began to apologize and desperately inquired about how I had obtained that recording. I said, Well, I'm not sure why that matters, but I had to come back for some things. I forgot to pack. I didn't want to disturb you girls, so I came down the back door to avoid your little party. That's when I heard you talking about me in bed. I recorded it because I was going to share it with you and tease you when I got back. But when you confessed to your affair with Daniel, I stayed and recorded everything. She cried out loud and said, Sweetheart, you heard me say it was just a one-off and only sex. You must know there's nothing between us. You have to forgive me. I'm so sorry. You weren't supposed to find out. For the first time in our marriage, her tears seemed not to affect me. I told her I heard everything and asked her how she could expect me to just brush that aside. I said I can't ignore that. And I can't ever trust her again. And I can't just pretend that everything's okay. She continued crying, saying she didn't mean what she said, that she loves me, and that I give her a chance to explain, and that she didn't mean any of that. And I have to believe her. She then asked, What about our 20 years and the kids? I told her, I know this is going to be hard, but I can't ignore what she did, and that she should have thought of the kids or our years together when she decided to betray me and our family. I said what she did is unforgivable, and she will have to face the consequences just like she was so ready to give me punishment for my mistakes. I understand that some men might be able to forgive their wives for such actions, but I personally couldn't muster the strength to do so. The pain was simply too overwhelming, and the trust that had been shattered felt beyond repair. Despite the love I once held for her, I couldn't envision a path towards overcoming what she had confessed. All I could do was acknowledge my own emotions and follow my heart, even if it meant saying goodbye to the woman I had once loved so intensely. Before leaving, I looked down at her and said, "You've broken my heart. Today I lost someone who didn't care about me, but today you lost someone who would have done anything for you." The sounds of begging for forgiveness followed me until I walked away from her for the last time. After that encounter, I made the heartbreaking call to our family and children, letting them know what had transpired between Sarah and me. My children, Michael and Katie, offered their understanding and unwavering support. Their lives were forever altered by the fallout, but I was determined to ensure their future was secure, promising to fund their college education and take care of them. I then proceeded to file for divorce as soon as I could and got the papers ready in no time. Meanwhile, the tension was thick as I handed Sarah the divorce papers. She begged for my forgiveness, but her appeals went unheard because my heart was too wounded to even contemplate reconciliation. I was acutely aware that I could never place my trust in her again. The divorce proceedings were a painful ordeal, with Sarah making desperate attempts to salvage our marriage. However, the judge's decision was swift and in my favor, granting me a significant portion of the assets and denying any spousal support at my office. When the other workers found out that Daniel had caused my divorce, they treated him like someone with leprosy. They refused to socialize with him and treated him like the jerk he was. He realized he couldn't stay there as they made his life miserable, screwing up jobs, causing complaints, and loss of money. So he decided to find his way out. I'm sure Michael and Richard's wives realized how close they had come to jeopardizing their marriages, as Sarah did. It was a wake-up call for them, and they understood the value of their husband's forgiveness and the need to respect and cherish their relationships. Sarah continued to try to win me back, but I had no intention of ever being with her again. Several months later, I began dating Becky, my secretary, who was eager to make me happy. She recognized that I was a valuable partner, and despite the 10-year age gap, she was content with our relationship. Meanwhile, Sarah's life took a more solemn trajectory as she dealt with the consequences of her failed marriage. She came to terms with the fact that I would never welcome her back, and she secured a position as a receptionist at a dental office. She met an older man and began dating. I'm sure in her quiet moments she would reflect on what could have been, wishing she had made different choices and held on to the life she had with me. I did miss her, but Becky quickly filled that void and made it her mission to be the perfect other half. I loved the young woman's energy, and about a year later, we got married. I hope for the best. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Take care.